Hominids use stones as tools. Some may view the use of stones as tools by hominids as the start of science on Earth. North and South America connect. The hominid Paranthropus evolves, a line of extinct early bipedal hominids. The oldest formed stone tools, the start of the Paleolithic or Old Stone Age. The first humans, the hominid Homo habilis evolves, the earliest member of the genus Homo. This is when the human brain begins to get bigger. The hominids bonobos evolve, the end of the Tertiary and start of the Quaternary period. Homo erectus evolves in Africa. Homo erectus moves into Eurasia from Africa. The controlled use of fire by hominids. Controlled fires may be made first by Australopithecus or Homo erectus. Homo erectus evolves far less body hair except on the head, face, armpit, chest, and groin. Homo erectus reaches China. Humans wear clothing. The earliest evidence of spears. There are 1 million humans on Earth, all hunter-gathering people. Homo sapiens evolve in Africa. The oldest Homo sapiens fossils are from Ethiopia. The human language of 30 short sounds begins to develop. All words are single syllable. This is the beginning of the transition from the verbal language of chimpanzees and monkeys to the language humans use now, which has shorter sound duration and a larger number of sounds. The majority of the 40 or so basic sounds in human language, a, b, k, d, e, etc., are probably learned before humans leave Africa, because although words vary, all humans use the same base sounds. Humans start to name objects and actions. Homo neanderthalensis evolves in Europe and Western Asia. The start of the worm glaciation, which connects a land bridge between Asia and America. Homo sapiens move out of Africa into Eurasia. This is the beginning of differences in race within the human species. The oldest Homo sapiens skull outside of Africa, in Israel. The earliest human burial, Skull Cave in Israel. The theory that the universe is controlled by gods. The explanation that many phenomena in the universe are controlled by objects with human and animal bodies that have supernatural powers is one of the earliest theories that tries to explain how the universe works. Humans use a bow and arrows and poison arrowheads. Homo erectus goes extinct. The start of the mass extinction of large animals due in part to human impact. Earliest water ship, sapiens reach Australia from Southeast Asia. The earliest known mine, Lion Cave in Swaziland, Africa, mined for the iron mineral hematite, which is ground to produce the red pigment ochre. The earliest sapiens fossils in Europe, Romania. The earliest oil lamp. The earliest known human-made painting, a cave painting made by using a blowing technique in Spain. The earliest musical instrument, a flute, made from the wing bone of a vulture. Humans catch fish. Sapiens reach China. The oldest known sculpture of the human form, a statue made from mammoth ivory. Humans weave textiles from flax and use coloring dyes. Humans raise dogs. The earliest ceramic objects, the Venus figurines. The Neanderthals go extinct. The earliest fired clay, clay dried and hardened by fire. Woven baskets. The earliest human-made structure, a stone wall. The earliest fishing hooks, cereal gathering. The earliest pottery. The earliest rope. There are 10 million humans on Earth, all hunter-gathering people. The earliest known map. Lime cement is used as an adhesive on small stone tools, microliths, from northern Sinai. Sapiens reach America, the oldest human bones in America. Humans transform from hunting and gathering to agriculture, from a migratory to a sedentary life, building the first cities. The end of the Pleistocene and start of the Holocene epoch. This is the end of the last ice age. The start of the Neolithic or New Stone Age in the Fertile Crescent, a region of the Middle East arching from the Nile Valley to the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Humans shape metal objects. Copper is the first metal shaped by humans. The oldest city, Jericho. The oldest saddle quern, a flat stone and rounded stone used to grind grain into flour. Goats are kept, fed, milked, and killed for food. The earliest stone buildings and temple in Turkey. The earliest settlement in China. Rye is grown in modern Syria. The domestication of plants is thought to have originated in the Fertile Crescent. The earliest settlement in Mesopotamia. Flax is grown. Flax is an oil and fiber crop. Sheep are raised for wool, skins, meat, and dung, which is used for fuel. Pigs are raised and killed for food. Clay tokens of various geometrical shapes that represent products are used in Mesopotamia. Cows are raised for milk, for meat, and eventually for plowing. The earliest flint sickle. A sickle has a semicircular blade and is used for cutting grain or tall grass. Wheat is grown in modern Syria. Common millet is grown in China. Barley is grown in modern Syria. The earliest gypsum cement or plaster. The earliest domesticated plants in America. Squash is grown in Peru. Magar, an Indus Valley city, is founded. The earliest fishing net. Lentils are grown in Israel. Peas are grown in Turkey. The oldest known boat, a dugout boat. The earliest drum. Rice is grown near the Yangtze River in China. Corn is grown in Mexico. The first metal to be smelted and casted, copper. Smelting is separating a metal from its ore by using heat and a reducing or oxidizing material. Casting involves pouring liquid metal into a shaped mold of baked clay, stone, metal, or sand. The earliest reed boats. The sailboat. The first fruit trees. Olives are grown in Israel and Jordan. The earliest settlement in Europe. Provadia Solnitsata in Bulgaria is founded. Winemaking. The earliest sun-dried mud bricks and mud brick house in Mesopotamia. Mud brick dried by the sun is one of the first building materials. The earliest nut crops. Almond trees are grown in the eastern part of the Mediterranean basin. The earliest writing on clay objects in Mesopotamia. The first numbers. The first stamp or seal. The first writing begins as symbols for numbers on clay bulla, hollow clay containers that hold clay tokens. These symbols represent the quantity and kind of tokens inside the bulla. Markings on clay tokens which represent products like sheep, oil, or metal may lead to the first symbols of the alphabet. Hollow bullae and clay tokens are eventually replaced by solid clay tablets with the same impressions. The sundial, the earliest timekeeping device. The length of the shadow indicates the time of day. The earliest plow. Plows are used to break up soil. The earliest irrigation, an artificial supply of water to land for food crops. Donkeys are raised and used for transport. The Egyptian calendar, 12 months of 30 days plus 5 extra days. The earliest known wheel, a pottery wheel, in Mesopotamia. Cotton is grown in Peru. Writing on clay tablets, symbols that represent a product such as cows, sheep, and cereals drawn with a stylus on clay tablets are the earliest record of what will become the modern alphabet. Many of the symbols look like the marked clay tokens that represent actual products and that are replaced by the drawn symbols on clay tablets. This is the first training and industry of scribes, which will ultimately evolve into the modern school system. Writing will be continuously taught eventually in all major civilizations, even through the Dark Ages until now. These tablets are all economic records, used to keep a record of objects owned or traded and contain no stories. Ox-pulled vehicles with wheels. Cheese-making. The earliest record of a belief in gods and goddesses. The earliest stringed musical instrument, the lyre and the harp, in Mesopotamia. Written symbols are combined to form words. There is a transition from word writing to sound writing in Sumerian. The vast majority of Sumerian language is made of one-syllable words. This suggests that all earlier spoken languages contained only single-syllable words. Bronze, copper, and tin are smelted and casted in modern Turkey. The start of the Bronze Age, which varies on different parts of Earth. Bronze is made by smelting together two separate ores, one bearing copper and the other tin. Bronze tools will replace copper tools. Cuneiform writing. Pictures are not drawn with pointed reed, but drawn with a cut reed stem pressed into the wet clay to make wedges. Soldering of metals. Silk making, in China. The earliest dam, built in Egypt to provide a water reservoir. The earliest silver objects. Metal casting, where wax is melted in a clay mold. The first recorded political assembly. The inclined plane, or ramp. The abacus, a counting and calculating device. The earliest bow drill. A bow drill can drill holes and start a fire from friction. The earliest pyramid in Egypt, designed by the earliest known scientist, Imhotep. Musical reed instruments. The earliest metal saw. The earliest arch. Iron is smelted and casted. The start of the Iron Age in Turkey. Scribes change from writing right to left in columns to writing left to right in rows. Skis are used in Scandinavia. The earliest dice and board game. The Babylonians describe constellations. Animal skin, leather, is used for writing. The earliest parchment. The earliest recorded written history. Writing on papyrus. Papyrus sheets are made from the fibrous layers within the stem of the papyrus plant. The Akkadian language, the earliest known Semitic language. The earliest verb tense and noun gender. The first dictionary. The earliest evidence of glass making, glass beads, in Mesopotamia. The earliest written stories. These consist of epics and myths, hymns and laments, proverbs and wisdom. These writings record a belief in gods, goddesses, a heaven, and an underworld. There are clear similarities between the Sumerian and the later Greek stories. For example, stories about the creation of the universe, good and bad deeds of the gods, and of a flood. The Sumerians believe in a variety of gods and goddesses. People of other regions have similar gods and goddesses but with different names. For example, the Sumerian goddess of love and war, Inanna, is analogous to the Babylonian Ishtar, the Greek Aphrodite, and the Roman Venus. Similarly, the Sumerian sky god, An, is analogous to the Babylonian Anu, the Greek Zeus, and Roman Jupiter. Egyptian scribes reduced Egyptian writing to only 26 signs with no vowels. Citrus trees are grown in China. The earliest musical horn. The earliest health science or medical text, which lists 10 remedies. The first place value number system, a sexagesimal base 60 number system. Fractional values such as 1 over 60 and 1 over 3600 are also in use. This base 60 number system is still in use to measure time and angles. The earliest recorded laws. Humans ride horses. The earliest spoked wheel. Spokes make the wheel lighter in weight. The earliest lock and key. The earliest library catalog. Metal is traded as money in Babylonia. The vegetables leek, garlic, and onion are grown around the Fertile Crescent. The earliest brass, a copper and zinc alloy. The earliest agricultural science text. The earliest mathematical text. The Pythagorean theorem is known in Babylonia, that the sum of the squares of the two legs of a right triangle is equal to the square of the hypotenuse. The first planet, Venus, is recognized in Babylon. The earliest oven-baked mud brick, also called burned brick. The earliest pulley. The Vedas, 4 ancient Indian collections of poems or hymns, originate as an oral tradition before being written down 1,200 years later. The water clock, or clepsydra. The earliest American city, an Olmec city in Veracruz, Mexico. The first letters that represent vowel sounds. The earliest Chinese writing. The earliest evidence of human kissing. Welding of metals using heat and hammering. Monotheism, the theory that only one God exists, by Amenhotep IV, Pharaoh of Egypt. All monotheistic religions may originate from the influence of this earliest recorded monotheism. Two-piece mold metal casting. The earliest written musical notation and musical composition. Shellac is used as plastic. The first steel in Egypt. Steel is an alloy of iron and carbon with carbon content up to 2%. The Phoenician alphabet, the ancestor of the Greek alphabet. Complex pulleys. The lifting power of a pulley is multiplied by the number of ropes pulling the load. The earliest lens. The Aramaic alphabet, the ancestor of Hebrew, Arabic, and probably the alphabets of India. Consonant letters are used to mark vowel sounds. The earliest Hebrew writing. The monotheistic religion Judaism is founded. The story of Moses. The Greek alphabet. Each vowel is given its own sign. The Indian alphabets of India and Southeast Asia. Eclipses are predicted by Babylonian astronomers. Rome is founded. The earliest aqueduct, a channel to move water from one place to another, near Nineveh. The earliest concrete, lime cement mixed with limestone used in an aqueduct. All planets visible to the naked eye, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, are clearly distinguished from stars in Babylonia. The Etruscan alphabet. Letter names are changed to A, Bay, K, etc. The Old Testament, the Torah, the Hebrew Bible, the Ten Commandments, and the story of Genesis. Metal coin money is traded. The universe is explained without using the theory of gods by Thales of Miletus. Thales claims the universe originated as water, that moonlight is reflected sunlight, and measures a pyramid by comparing the pyramid's shadow with a shadow from a stick. The concept of a devil is created and is first recorded in the Book of Job, written around this time. The earliest Native American writing. The monotheistic religion Zoroastrianism is founded. The Earth-centered universe theory, and the theory that humans evolved from fish. The Earth-centered theory will dominate until the 1500s. The Latin alphabet. The start of Buddhism. The Earth is described as a sphere by Pythagoras. The Chinese philosopher Confucius lives around this time. The crossbow is invented in China. There are 100 million humans on Earth. Babylonian astronomers divide the sky into 12 parts which correspond to constellations, also called the zodiac. That the brain controls the body is understood in the first human dissection. The optic nerve and eustachian tubes are identified. That stars are other suns and made of red-hot metal is recognized, and the theory that people live on the moon, and that the universe is made of tiny bodies by Anaxagoras. The earliest particle or wireless communication, the optical telegraph using fire signals. The theory that all matter is made of atoms. The theory that the universe is made of only 4 elements: water, air, fire, and earth. Books of Protagoras are burned for doubting the existence of gods. the first recorded trial of a person for atheism, Anaxagoras, the theory that the Earth moves through space, the Metonic calendar, 12 years of 12 months and 7 years of 13 months. The universe is explained as being infinite in size, filled with many other worlds, and the Milky Way is a large group of stars. The motions of atoms are described based on natural laws, not on the wants of gods or demons. A school of health science is founded by Hippocrates. Disease is viewed as a physical phenomenon, not the product of gods or demons. Grafting of plants in Greece. Socrates is sentenced to death, in part for disrespecting the gods. The school of the Academy is founded by Plato in Athens. The word academy will eventually be applied to all schools. The sky is divided into degrees of latitude and longitude, a system that is eventually applied to the Earth. The theory that the Earth rotates around its own axis and that some planets rotate around the Sun. The school called the Lyceum is opened by Aristotle in Athens. Aristotle also adds a fifth element, ether, which the heavens are made of, and puts forward the first theory of gravity. The calendar of Callippus, 76 years of 940 months, which is more accurate than that of Meton. The theory that the moon influences the tides. The theory that pleasure is good and pain is bad. Nerves are distinguished from blood vessels. The liver, ovaries, fallopian tubes, and retina are identified. That falling bodies accelerate is recognized. A lathe is used in Egypt. A workpiece is rotated against a cutting tool. The earliest known use of a chain drive, used in an automatic repeating crossbow. The Museum and Library of Alexandria is founded. Euclid's Elements compiles all known mathematics. Compressed air is used for a catapult and for the earliest musical keyboard instrument, an organ, by Ctesibius in Alexandria. The cerebrum and cerebellum of the brain are identified. A paddle wheel turned by oxen propels a Roman water ship. The earliest lever, a rigid bar pivoted on a support point that can be used to exert a force on an object. The earliest screw, the Archimedes screw, a device for raising water. The concept of density, mass divided by volume, is understood. The rotation of the Earth around its own axis once a day and around the Sun once a year is understood by Aristarchus. The earliest known escapement, a device that controls the rotation of a toothed gear to provide periodic impulses. The ellipse, parabola, and hyperbola are described in Alexandria. The size of Earth is correctly calculated by using the angle of the Sun's shadow and the distance between two cities. The earliest observation of a comet. The earliest evidence of gears, the spur and worm gears. A gear is a toothed machine part, such as a wheel or a cylinder, that meshes with another toothed part to transmit motion or to change speed or direction. The distance to the moon is measured using parallax, by measuring how much an object appears to move compared to a more distant object when the observer changes positions. The law of inertia, that a body preserves its motion, is understood. The invention of paper in China. Paper is made by putting a mixture of fibers and water on a fine screen. When the water drains away, the remaining mat of fibers is removed and dried. A nova is observed, the first star catalog that uses celestial coordinates of latitude and longitude and that divides stars by brightness. The precession of the equinoxes is recognized, that the position of the stars at equinox changes slightly each year. The earliest known metal spur gear in mechanical computer. Negative numbers are used in China. The theory that light is made of atoms that move very fast. The first glass blowing in Jerusalem. The Julian calendar, 365 days with an extra day every 4 years. The earliest water wheel. The earliest elevator or vertical lift. The germ theory of disease, that disease can be caused by tiny living organisms. Silk from China is traded as far west as Rome. The monotheistic religion Christianity is founded, branching from Judaism. The steam engine is invented in Alexandria. A hollow metal sphere rotates from the power of steam jets that escape through open tubes on each side of the sphere. The steam engine will not be used for practical purposes until the 1600s. The earliest siphon, syringe, and chariot odometer. A windwheel-powered machine. The glass prism. The last cuneiform texts. This ends 3,000 years of cuneiform writing. The earliest encyclopedia. The earliest magnetic compass in China. The earliest known complete musical composition, including musical notation. The earliest distillation in Alexandria. Distillation is the process of evaporating or boiling a liquid and condensing its vapor. Ptolemy's Almagest, an Earth-centered model of the universe, with the Earth a stationary sphere in the center, surrounded by 7 larger planetary spheres for the Moon, Sun, planets, and fixed stars. A bellow-fed musical organ. The valves of the heart are described, and that the brain controls the voice is shown. Crank handles are used in China. The earliest press-on printing in China. An encyclopedia of alchemy. The Council of Nicaea condemns the claim of Arius that Jesus was not divine as a heresy. The Arabic alphabet. Roman Emperor Constantine I abolishes all pagan, polytheistic hospitals. Roman Emperor Theodosius I prohibits the visiting of non-Christian temples. The library in the temple to Serapis, the Serapeum in Alexandria, is violently destroyed by Christian people, and the temple is converted to a Christian church. The last recorded hieroglyph inscription in Egypt. The murder of Greek philosopher Hypatia by Christian people. Eastern Roman Emperor Theodosius II orders all non-Christian books burned. The Earth rotation around its own axis is described by Indian astronomer Aryabhata. That the medium is actually an impediment to a projectile's motion is recognized. Byzantine Emperor Justinian closes the schools of Alexandria and Athens, including Plato's Academy. The Hôtel Dieu in Lyon is founded, the earliest hospital in France. Toilet paper is used in China. The earliest windmill in Persia. This windmill uses a vertical shaft and horizontal sails to grind grain. The monotheistic religion Islam is founded. The first flame-throwing weapon, Greek fire. The numerals 0 through 9 and decimal notation are used in Pakistan. Jabir prepares and identifies acids. Woodcut printing in Japan. A paper with text is attached with rice paste to a block of wood. The uninked parts are cut away, the block is inked, and a paper pressed on it. Lowercase letters. Charlemagne establishes schools where math and grammar are taught. String instruments are played with a bow. The Beit al-Hikmah, House of Wisdom School, is founded, where many scientific works are translated into Arabic. Gunpowder is invented in China. The earliest gunpowder, black powder, is a mixture of saltpeter, potassium nitrate, sulfur, and charcoal. A health science school is founded in Salerno, Italy. The first polyphonic, many-voiced music, organum, and distinct pitches. Gypsum plaster is used to hold broken bones in place by Al-Razi, who openly rejects Islam and other religions. Norwegian explorers reach North America. The earliest rocket in China. Gunpowder rockets, probably in hollow bamboo tubes. A star catalog that includes Arabic star names which, in corrupted form, are still in use today. The earliest Arabic numerals in Europe. The encyclopedia, the Suda. Paper money is used in China. Musical staff notation. The pinhole camera. Movable type printing, where individual blocks can be put together to form a text, is invented in China. Baked clay types are placed side by side on an iron plate coated with a mixture of resin, wax, and paper ash. Gently heating this plate and then letting the plate cool solidifies the type. The University of Bologna is founded. Non-religious, secular music evolves in France. Al-Ghazali's book, The Incoherence of the Philosophers, slows the influence of ancient Greek philosophy in Arab and Persian nations. The first cannon and gun in China. The first stringed instrument to use a keyboard. The University of Oxford is founded. The University of Paris is founded. The start of the Inquisition. Pope Lucius III makes burning the official punishment for heresy. The Inquisition will last until the 1800s. The theory that all matter is made of light. The movable metal block printing press is invented in Korea. Instructions for making gunpowder are introduced to Europe. Mechanically propelled ships and carriages, and that the Earth can be circumnavigated, are proposed by Roger Bacon. Roger Bacon is imprisoned and his works are ordered suppressed. Musical notes are defined in terms of time, long, breve, and semi-breve. The first eyeglasses. The first mechanical clocks in Europe, driven by a falling weight that turns a clock hour hand. Sulfuric and other strong acids are described. Before this, vinegar was the strongest acid known. The first book devoted entirely to anatomy. The law of inertia is revived. The Charles University in Prague is founded, the first university in Central Europe. Uniformly accelerated motion is described, and rectangular coordinates, latitude and longitude, are used to draw geometric figures. The University of Vienna is founded, the oldest university in the German-speaking world. The theory that the Earth rotates daily is revived in France. The first harpsichords in Italy. Sungkyunkwan University in Korea is founded. The magic lantern, an early image projector. The movable type printing press is introduced into Europe. Printing in Europe will spread quickly and results in low-cost books. This increase in books leads to more educated and literate people and faster communication. The laws of perspective. How to draw a three-dimensional scene on a two-dimensional plane. Space is described as infinite in size, and stars are described as other suns with inhabited planets. The earliest wound spiral spring and spring-driven clocks. Replacing a falling weight with a spring to drive the wheel train allows smaller timekeeping devices to be made. The first printed book in Europe, copies of the Bible. The cipher wheel for encrypting messages. A parachute is designed. Gliders, a helical air screw, and a flying machine with flapping wings are designed. Humans from Europe reach America by crossing the Atlantic Ocean in 3 small ships. A screw-cutting machine is designed. That the new lands represent a new continent separated from Asia by a second ocean is recognized. Europeans reach the Pacific Ocean, the start of the Protestant Reformation. Humans circumnavigate the Earth. This proves that a single ocean covers the Earth. The disease syphilis is described and named. Spanish physician Michael Servetus publishes a book that describes Jesus as only human. The method of triangulation to measure distance. A baseline of known length is chosen, and from its endpoints the angles of sight to a remote object are measured. The distance to the object from either endpoint can then be calculated using simple trigonometry. The University of Santo Domingo is founded, the first university in the Western Hemisphere. The theory that the Earth and planets rotate around a central fixed point. Appendicitis, an inflammation of the appendix, is described. The sun-centered theory is revived by Copernicus. The first imaginary numbers, the square root of a negative number. Arteries are tied to stop bleeding. Artificial limbs are created. The scientific classification of minerals. Pulmonary circulation is understood by Michael Servetus. That blood goes from the right side of the heart to the lung where it is mixed with air becoming red, and then to the left side of the heart where it is sent through the rest of the body. The germ theory of disease is revived. The first planetary tables based on the sun-centered theory. Servetus is burned alive for heresy. The first systematic computations of probabilities, for example the chance of a certain combination in the fall of 3 dice. The first scientific society, a group for the communication of scientific research. The precursor of the Academy of the Links. Fallopian tubes and semicircular canals are identified, and the vagina, placenta, clitoris, and cochlea are named. The first illustrations of fossils. Cylindrical projection is used to make a map so that lines of latitude and longitude are straight. A comet is proven to be farther away than the moon and to have an orbit that is not circular, which disproves the ancient theory of crystal planetary spheres. The Gregorian calendar. February 29th is omitted in century years, which are not divisible by 400. Decimal point notation is introduced into Europe. Objects of different weight are shown to fall the same distance in the same amount of time. The first modern flush toilet. Letters are used to represent constant and unknown numbers. The first variables. That plants, like animals, have gender is recognized. The first thermometer is invented by Galileo. A glass tube is turned upside down in a container of water. A change in temperature changes the level of the water within it. A variable star is discovered. A star that shows periodic changes in brightness. The preparation of hydrochloric acid and other chemical compounds are described. Italian philosopher Giordano Bruno is burned alive at the stake for heresy in Rome. That the Earth is a spherical magnet on which a compass points to the magnetic poles is recognized. And the first electroscope, which measures static electricity. The first star catalog to show the entire celestial sphere, and the Bayer star naming system, where each star is named after the constellation associated with it in order of brightness. For example, Betelgeuse, the brightest star in Orion, is named Alpha Orionis, and Rigel is Beta Orionis. The first synthetic luminescent material, barium sulfide. Luminescence is light emission that cannot be attributed to the temperature of the emitting body. The inverse squared law of light. That the intensity of light is inversely related to the square of the distance. Europeans discover and explore Australia. The earliest telescope, a refracting telescope. A double convex lens, the object glass, is placed at the farther end of a tube, and a double concave lens, the eyepiece, at the nearer end. The law of falling bodies, that the distance covered by a falling body is proportional to the square of the elapsed time, is understood, and that the path of a projectile is a parabola, that 2 forces can work on an object at the same time, is understood. That planets move in elliptical orbits, with the sun at one focus of the ellipse, and that a line connecting a planet and the sun will sweep over equal areas in equal times, is shown by Johannes Kepler. Kepler's first 2 laws of planetary motion. The 4 moons of Jupiter are first seen in their period determined by Galileo. The phases of planet Venus are seen by Galileo. The earliest microscope, a compound light microscope. That the sun has spots and rotates around its own axis, is shown. A story about a man who travels to the moon by Kepler. The theory of storage of light. That light can be absorbed in materials and re-emitted later. exponential notation, and logarithms. Copernicanism is declared a heresy by Pope Paul V, Camillo Borghese. The circulatory system is described, that the heart is a muscle that contracts to push blood out, that blood can only move in one direction in a circle from the heart to the arteries, from the arteries to the veins, and through the veins back to the heart. The reflecting telescope. A reflecting telescope focuses light reflected off a parabolic-shaped concave mirror instead of through a lens. The first double or binary star system is observed, that the square of the period of orbit of a planet is proportional to the cube of its distance from the Sun, is shown by Kepler. Kepler's third law of planetary motion, that the curvature of the lens in the human eye changes as the eye focuses to different distances, is recognized. The law of refraction, which describes how a light ray bends when passing between two mediums of different density. The submarine. The sealed thermometer, which measures temperature independently of air pressure. That the Sun completes one rotation every 25 days is recognized, and the inclination of the Sun's axis to the Earth's orbit is determined to be 7 degrees. The transit of Mercury across the Sun is observed. The Vernier scale, a device capable of precise measurement, is invented. The speed of sound is measured as around 500 meters or 1,500 feet per second, and shown to be independent of pitch by measuring the time difference between seeing the flash of a gun and hearing the sound over a long distance on a still day. Galileo is condemned to life imprisonment by the Inquisition. The Académie Parisienne, the precursor to the French Academy of Sciences. Frequencies of sounds are measured. That the direction of the Earth's magnetic field changes over time is recognized. Harvard College is founded. The slow swaying or libration of the moon as it rotates is recognized. The Cartesian coordinate system, where points are plotted on a two-dimensional graph. The transit of Venus is observed. That the orbit of the moon around the Earth is approximately elliptical with the Earth at one focus, and that the Sun has a perturbing effect on the moon's orbit is shown. The micrometer, a device for precision measurement, is invented and applied to the telescope. The Earth's acceleration due to gravity is measured. The repeating gun, a gun in which ammunition is fed from a magazine. A mechanical calculating machine that can add and subtract. The earliest vacuum, a space empty of matter, and barometer, which measures atmospheric pressure, are invented. When a tube filled with mercury is turned upside down into a dish, the space above the mercury in the tube is found to be a vacuum. The phases of Mercury are observed. The principle of the conservation of motion is described by René Descartes. That the strength the Sun holds the planets with decreases by the inverse distance squared is recognized. Atmospheric pressure is shown to change at different elevations. This implies that empty space, a vacuum, exists above the atmosphere. The label of gas is applied to a substance. Carbon dioxide gas is recognized. The first air pump, that sound cannot be produced in the absence of air, is proven. This air pump is like a water pump but airtight and is powered by hand pumping. The hydraulic press, that pressure applied to a confined liquid is transmitted equally through the liquid in all directions, is recognized. Lymphatic vessels are identified, which have thinner walls than blood vessels and carry the clear watery fluid portion of the blood lymph into the spaces around cells and back into the blood vessels. The first known moon of Saturn, Titan, is identified. Exponents are extended to include negative numbers and fractions. Red blood cells are observed and described. The ring of Saturn is seen, and the apparent sizes of the planets are measured in seconds of arc. The Royal Society is formed. Gas is collected for the first time, and that electrical attraction is transmitted through a vacuum is proven. A subatmospheric pressure is measured using a mercury-filled tube to measure the pressure produced in a bell jar by a piston pump. Acids, bases, and neutral liquids are recognized using acid-base indicators, and an element is defined as any substance that cannot be broken down farther into another substance. The connection of arteries and veins and microscopic blood vessels, eventually named capillaries, are observed. That pressure and volume of a gas are inversely related is proven. A long J-shaped tube traps air at the end using mercury. Adding twice the mercury adds twice the pressure, reducing the volume of air at the end by half. Removing half the mercury doubles the volume of air. The first static electricity generator is built. A sulfur globe is rotated against a cloth which can produce sizable electric sparks. The theory that light is made of particles is revived by René Descartes, who compares light to a ball and is the first to describe the two major theories of light. That light may be transmitted by particle collision, the wave or constant collision theory, or by particles that move mostly without collision through space, the corpuscular or rare collision theory. The theory that comets move in elliptical orbits. The theory of light diffraction. Light passed through two narrow holes, one behind the other, causes some light to appear outside of the cone of light made by the holes. This is thought to be a new property of light named diffraction, in which light bends around the side of a hole. But this outer light can also be explained as light reflected off the inside surface of the hole. The period of a Mars day is measured as 24 hours and 40 minutes. The first blood transfusion is performed. The wave theory of light is firmly established by Robert Hooke, with the medium being a fluid between the stars associated with the ancient concept of ether. In this view, light is analogous to sound, a motion that results from the collisions of many transparent material particles of a medium. Hooke also uses the word cells to describe tiny rectangular holes in a thin sliver of cork viewed under a microscope, and publishes the first images of a microorganism and protist. Calculus. Differentiation is used to find the rate of change or slope of an equation, and integration is used to calculate the area or volume described by an equation. The equation distance equals velocity multiplied by time is identified. In addition, the concept and equation of momentum, mass times velocity, and the theory of the conservation of momentum is established. Note that conservation of momentum may result from the separate conservation of mass and of motion. Jupiter's period of daily rotation of 9 hours 56 minutes is determined by observing the movement of spots in Jupiter's clouds. The theory of spontaneous regeneration of flies from meat is disproven by proving that maggots only appear in meat placed in open vessels which flies can land on, and not in closed vessels. The concept of energy, mass multiplied by velocity squared, and the theory of conservation of energy. The phenomenon of double refraction is observed. Objects viewed through calcite are seen double, which is explained as light being refracted at two different angles. This may be the result of light particles reflecting off of atoms in the two perpendicular planes within the crystal. The first detailed description of invertebrate anatomy. The element phosphorus is identified as a heavy glowing liquid obtained by distilling a red oil distilled from urine with carbon. A calculating machine that can add, subtract, multiply, and divide is constructed. The element hydrogen is identified when released by mixing iron filings with acids, and is found to be flammable. The corpuscular theory of light is firmly established by Isaac Newton. In this view, light is thought to be made of material particles that move through any medium. Newton shows that color is a property of light, not of objects. Newton also separates white light into primary colors and recombines primary colors to form white light. Newton also shows that light of different colors refract at different angles. The scale of our star system is measured using the parallax of Mars to measure the distance from Earth to Mars, which provides a scale to calculate the distance to the other planets. The combustion of gunpowder is used to create a vacuum. The element oxygen is identified. The space between the ring of Saturn is seen. The binomial theorem is described. For any positive integer n, the nth power of the sum of two numbers a and b may be expressed as the sum of n plus 1 terms. The speed of light is shown to be finite, and is measured by subtracting the time it takes for the moon of Jupiter, Io, to enter and exit the shadow of Jupiter when the Earth is moving toward Jupiter from the time it takes when the Earth is moving away from Jupiter. The first observatory in the southern hemisphere. Sperm cells are first described. The first woman to teach at a university after the collapse of science of the 400s CE. The helical spring. The first catalog of telescopically located southern hemisphere stars. Direct neuron activation, or direct neuron writing. Jan Swammerdam contracts a muscle by making neurons fire using electricity. A frog leg hanging from a silver wire twitches when a brass ring contacts it. This electrical muscle movement will eventually lead to very precise remote neuron stimulation. Binary numbers are established, the basis of all modern computers. The first pressure cooker. Water boiled in an airtight container raises the pressure in the container, which raises the boiling point of water, allowing food to cook faster. A safety valve prevents explosions. The cell nucleus is described. The first picture of bacteria. A portable pinhole camera. The law of gravitation by Isaac Newton, that all matter attracts other matter with a force that is the product of their masses and the inverse of their distance squared. Newton clearly distinguishes between mass and weight, viewing mass as the quantity of matter contained in a body, and defines a force as the product of mass and acceleration. Newton shows that the acceleration on any mass from a second mass due to gravity can be calculated as the mass of the second object divided by the distance between the two objects squared, and theorizes that even light particles are affected by gravity. That a mite causes scabies, a skin inflammation, is proven, and the mite first seen with a microscope. A gear cutting machine, a machine for cutting gears out of cylinders of metal. The steam engine is reinvented. A pump with a piston is raised by steam. A water wheel is used to lift ore from a mine. The quantity mass times velocity squared is named vis visa, the living force, and the theory that vis visa, not momentum, is the quantity always conserved. The phlogiston theory of combustion. Phlogiston is thought to be the combustible element in substances. The size and distance of other stars is measured by comparing the apparent size of Sirius to a fractional portion of the Sun. The theory that color is determined by the frequency of light. The Akademie der Wissenschaften, Academy of Sciences, is established in Berlin. A frog muscle is caused to move by rubbing a cut nerve with a scalpel. The pianoforte, or piano, is invented. That liquids such as water always boil at the same temperature is determined. The path of a comet is correctly calculated. Light rays are shown to move low-mass objects. The first theory of relativity, that a motion requires at least two bodies as opposed to the theory of absolute space-time and motion. The mass and density of the planets are determined, and the theory that the universe is made of mostly empty space by Newton. Newton calculates the mass of Jupiter to be around 1/1000th the mass of the Sun, Saturn around 1/2000th, and the Earth to be around 1/200,000th. Newton estimates the density of Earth to be about 4 times the density of the Sun, Jupiter 3/4 the density, and Saturn only half the density. Newton allows that gravitational attraction may arise as a result of emissions from the bodies themselves or by the action of a material medium. Newton also recognizes that the Sun is moved by the gravity of the other planets. A thermometer that uses mercury and the Fahrenheit temperature scale, that boiling point changes with change in pressure, is recognized. The movement of the stars over long periods of time is proven. This adds proof against the ancient claim that the stars are fixed on a celestial sphere. The theory that space is mostly dark because other stars are too far away for light emitting from them to be going in our direction. A machine uses a perforated roll of paper to form patterns in textiles. Perforated paper is the basis for early mechanical computers and perforated film. Coal gas, a flammable gas made mostly of hydrogen, methane, and carbon monoxide, is produced by distillation of coal. That electricity can flow in silk and metal is discovered. The theory that electricity is made of 2 different fluids, vitreous and resinous. Life of Earth, including the human species, is systematically categorized by Carolus Linnaeus. Substances that can conduct a flow of electricity are called conductors, and those that cannot are called insulators. That the Earth is an oblate spheroid, a sphere flattened at the poles, is verified. The kinetic theory of gases and heat. Pressure is explained as the impact of molecules on a surface. Pressure and motion are shown to increase with temperature. That phosphorus gains weight when burned, now known as oxidation, is found. This conflicts with the phlogiston theory. Parthenogenesis, reproduction without fertilization, is conclusively proven in female aphids. The Celsius or centigrade temperature scale is invented. The freezing and boiling point of water are divided into 100 degrees. The first philosophical society in America, the American Philosophical Society, is formed. An electric spark is used to ignite a flammable liquid, ether. An electric spark ignites black powder. The storage of electricity, the first electric memory and capacitor, commonly called the Leyden jar. A Leyden jar is a glass bottle holding water that can store electricity and give the holder of the bottle a large electric shock. An electrostatic motor. A clapper swings back and forth between 2 bells of oppositely charged glasses, causing a ring on contact with each until the charge is gone. The theory that electricity is made of 2 streams of electric fluid that move in opposite directions. That electricity in an electrostatic generator comes from the ground and not the sphere is proven. The theory that electricity is a single fluid and that lightning is electricity. Citrus fruits are proven to cure scurvy in one of the earliest clinical experiments. The basis of refrigeration is understood. That evaporating liquids produces cold is recognized. The phenomenon of nutation, that the apparent declination of some stars changes annually because of the movement of the nodes of the moon's orbit around the Earth. Osmosis is described. The spontaneous passage or diffusion of water or some other solvent through a semi-permeable membrane. That irregularities in the motions of satellites occur because the bodies they orbit are not perfectly spherical is recognized. That the electric charge is stored in the glass of a Leyden jar is proven. The theory that the Sun is not the center of the universe and that the Milky Way is flattened. Diderot's 28-volume encyclopedia. The different spectra of an alcohol flame colored with various salts is described. A spark is passed through a vacuum tube. Digestion of food is proven to be chemical and not mechanical. Small metal cylinders with food inside are regurgitated by birds with partially digested food. Lightning is proven to be electricity by charging a Leyden jar with electricity from the sky using a kite. Electrostatic induction is identified, that an electrified object can induce an opposite charge in a second object just by being close. That air can hold electricity is discovered. Moscow State University is founded. Carbon dioxide is isolated when released by mixing magnesium oxide with an acid. The nebular hypothesis, that the star system formed as a result of the gravitational interaction of atoms, that the Milky Way is a lens-shaped collection of stars, and that other such island universes exist. The first color specification based on the painter's three primary colors, red, yellow, and blue. The theory that specialized organs arise out of unspecialized tissue in the embryo is introduced and will replace the theory that a body is preformed in the egg or sperm. The electrical inverse distance squared law, the theory that electrical attraction and repulsion between charged bodies decreases by the inverse of the distance between them squared. Locating the center of an earthquake by recording the time when the earthquake is felt in different places is described. Electrolysis. Molecules are split using electricity. Water is separated into hydrogen and oxygen gases using electricity. That valleys are formed by streams that run through them is understood. And that all rocks are not sedimentary is proven because basalt is shown to be formed by volcanoes, has an igneous origin. A globular cluster is recognized as a group of stars. Hydrogen gas is isolated by dissolving metals in acids and collecting the gas released in bottles inverted over water or mercury. The first Encyclopedia Britannica, that light particles do not appear to interfere or collide with each other is recognized. The first self-propelled vehicle, a steam engine-powered automobile. The theory that fossils that resemble no living creature may have been animals that went extinct. That quantity of charge equals electric potential times capacity is understood. Carbon dioxide gas is dissolved in water, which is the beginning of the soda water industry. 5 new gases are identified and isolated, including nitrous oxide and carbon monoxide. That some gases cannot be collected over water because they are soluble in water but can be collected over mercury is realized. The theory that gravity must change the speed of light particles, that a mass may be so large that light particles cannot escape it, and that the force that causes light to be emitted from luminous bodies is much higher than the force of gravity at the surface of the sun. The mass of a light particle is measured to be around 10 nanograms. The inverse square law of gravitation is applied to chemical forces of attraction. Nitrogen gas is isolated. Oxygen gas is isolated by collecting the gas emitted by heating mercury oxide. The first catalog of Messier objects, celestial objects which include nebulae and star clusters. The element chlorine is isolated, as a gas, using hydrochloric acid on magnesium dioxide. Combustion is shown to be a reaction with a gas in the air, later named oxygen. Material in the air is shown to combine with metals when heated, which will end the phlogiston theory of combustion and demonstrates the conservation of mass. The earliest telegraph. 11 new acids are identified, including citric and lactic, in addition to the identification of casein, aldehyde, and glycerol. The effect of light on silver compounds is also described, which 50 years later will be used in the development of photography. A threshing machine. A farm machine that separates seeds from plants. Methane gas is discovered and isolated. Planet Uranus is identified. This is the first new planet to be discovered since prehistoric times. That the shape of crystals implies their chemical composition is understood. Periodic variations in the intensity of the light from variable stars is explained as the star being eclipsed by a darker companion body. The theory that respiration is a combustion process that accounts for animal heat. The first sewer, a drain used to carry away surface water or sewage, to be installed under the streets. The motion of the sun relative to the other stars is recognized. The sun is found to be moving towards the constellation Hercules. The hot air balloon, a steam engine boat. Human flight by balloon. The density of gases is measured by measuring the weight of particular volumes of gas. Water is shown to be a compound, not an element. The fusion of molecules using electricity. Water is produced by burning hydrogen gas in oxygen gas with an electric spark. This shows that water is a combination of two gases, hydrogen and oxygen, and not an element as was thought for centuries. That some nebulae contain stars is observed, and nebulae are thought to be very large and distant collections of stars. The first gas is liquefied, sulfur dioxide. The earliest diffraction grating, constructed using hair. Air is shown to be a mixture of gases and not a single element by showing that nitric acid is produced by sparking air. Air is found to be made of around 4 parts nitrogen and 1 part oxygen. The first artificial insemination, impregnating an organism by injecting semen into the vagina. Electric and magnetic attraction and repulsion are proven to be both proportional to amount of charge and inversely proportional to distance squared. The earliest iron ship, that volume and temperature of a gas are inversely related, is known. In addition, for each degree centigrade rise in temperature, the volume of a gas is found to expand by 1 over 273 parts of its volume at 0 degrees Celsius, which implies that at a temperature of minus 273 degrees Celsius, the volume of a gas would reach 0, and that there can be no lower temperature. Light is listed as the most simple element on the first list of known elements. A sewing machine. That all objects emit heat, and that heat always moves from a hot body to a cold body is known. Remote neuron activation, or remote neuron writing, by Luigi Galvani. A muscle is contracted remotely by using a remote electric spark while metal is connected to the nerve. Coal gas is used to light a house. That acids and bases neutralize each other in fixed proportions is shown. That the amount of water vapor the air can hold rises with temperature is shown. The theory of natural selection, that species less adapted are more likely to die while those better adapted will continue and multiply. Immunity by vaccination is proven. That having cowpox disease provides immunity from the more severe smallpox disease is confirmed. That different parts of the brain control different parts of the body is understood. Marble is produced by melting and quickly cooling limestone, which is calcium carbonate. The gravitational constant, the mass, and the density of the Earth are measured. The metric system. Elements are shown to combine in definite proportions. The electric battery or voltaic pile is invented. Stacks of alternating silver and zinc plates, each separated by a moist pad, produce a large electric force when the opposite ends are connected with a conductor. This battery provides a continuous source of electrical current. Invisible light is recognized. An invisible portion of the spectrum of light beyond the color red, later named infrared, is found to heat up a thermometer more than any other color. The change in temperature caused by compressing and expanding air is measured. That electricity and water mixed with litmus is colored blue around the silver electrode and red around the zinc electrode is found. Litmus is a material obtained from certain lichens that turns blue in alkaline solution and red in acid solution. Hydrogen and oxygen gas are collected separately from the electrolysis of water. Electroplating is discovered. By passing electric current through a solution of copper sulfate, metallic copper can be made to cover or plate a conductive object that is used as an electrode. The first known asteroid and minor planet, Ceres, is recognized. The invisible light, ultraviolet light, is discovered. An invisible part of the spectrum of light beyond the violet part causes a silver chloride chemical reaction more strongly than any other part of the spectrum. The frequencies and wavelengths or particle intervals of light are determined, and the theory of light interference, that two light waves can add to each other or cancel each other out, similar to two sound waves. The first glass diffraction gratings are in use. The first oxygen-hydrogen torch and gas torch welding. The law of partial pressures, that each component of a mixture of gases exerts the same pressure that it would exert if it alone occupied the whole volume of the mixture at the same temperature. Spectral lines are identified as dark lines in the spectrum of a ray of light from the sun. The first dry electric battery. That different gases all expand by equal amounts with rise in temperature is discovered. The first water distribution system of a city, Philadelphia. That atoms of different elements vary in size and mass is shown. And the first table of elements by atomic mass, with hydrogen assigned a value of 1. The steam engine railway train. The size of an atom is estimated to be around a nanometer. There are 1 billion humans on Earth. The first percussion ignition gun. The first refrigeration machine. Ether is expanded into a vacuum to lower the temperature inside a refrigerator, then compressed to raise the temperature outside the refrigerator, and this process is then repeated. The theory that chemical combination occurs between substances of opposite charge. Asparagine, the first amino acid, is isolated. Streets are lit with gas lighting. In London, the phenomenon of light polarization is observed. An image of sunlight reflected from a window that passes through calcite is found to produce only one image instead of the usual 2 images from double refraction. Electric arc welding and an electric arc furnace. A metal, aluminum, is melted using electricity. Gases are shown to combine in small whole number ratios by volume and not by mass, as long as temperature and pressure are constant. For example, 2 parts of hydrogen unite with 1 part nitrogen to form ammonia. The first electric light, the arc lamp. Chlorine is shown to support combustion like oxygen does, and hydrogen is shown to be characteristic of acids. Fourier's theorem. that any periodic oscillation can be reduced to a sum of simple sinusoidal waves, the concept of molecules, and the method to determine correct atomic mass and molecular formula. By presuming that the distance between molecules does not vary, equal volumes of all gases at the same temperature and pressure must contain the same number of molecules. That fats are combinations of glycerol and fatty acids is recognized. The spectroscope. That substances emit specific spectral lines is known. The spectrum of planet Venus is found to have the same absorption lines as the Sun, and the spectrum of other stars are found to have absorption lines that are different from those of the Sun. The theory that all atomic masses are multiples of the atomic mass of hydrogen. Optical isomers are discovered, chemically identical molecules that rotate polarized light in different directions because of differences in their shape. Chemical radicals are recognized, a group of atoms that take part in most chemical reactions as a single unit, usually passing from one compound to another but incapable of existing freely for a long time. That strata layers can be recognized by the kinds of fossils in them is understood. The theory that light is a transverse wave, oscillates at a right angle to the direction of travel in an ether medium. This theory is used to explain light polarization as the alignment of light waves oscillating in the same plane. But polarization can also be explained as planarization, in which light is filtered into parallel planes when reflected. The theory that chemicals contain light. That fungi originate from spores is proven. Electricity is understood to cause magnetism, and the first electromagnet. Electric current running through a wire causes a magnetic compass needle to move. The direction of electric current in a wire is related to magnetic force. If the right hand holds a wire with the thumb pointing from positive to negative, the fingers indicate the direction the north pole of a magnet will be deflected. Magnetism is identified as electricity. That electric current runs through a permanent magnet. In addition, two parallel wires are found to attract each other when carrying current in the same direction and repel each other when carrying current in opposite directions. The electric current meter. A needle is deflected to measure a current. Wrapping a wire several turns around the needle is found to increase the effect. The continent of Antarctica is discovered. The first gas combustion engine. This engine uses hydrogen gas combustion to create a vacuum. Electrical current in air and in a vacuum is moved by a magnet. The dynamic electric motor. This electric motor creates sustained mechanical motion from electricity and is based on the principle that like poles of a magnet repel one another. Thermoelectricity, or the Seebeck effect, is discovered. That an electric current flows between different conductive materials that are kept at different temperatures. This is the basis of the thermocouple and the thermopile. The grating equation, n times lambda equals d times sine theta, is established. This equation equates wavelength or particle interval of light to the grating groove spacing and the angle between the spectral line and the perpendicular to the grating. This equation is then used to calculate wavelengths of light from a diffraction grating for the first time. The first practical electromagnet, also known as an inductor. This electromagnet can support more than its own weight. That the spectrum of a flame can be used to detect the presence of chemical compounds is understood. The phenomenon of electrical oscillation is discovered, the basis of alternating current and radio communication. The first permanent photograph and photograph reproduction process. A pewter plate is coated with asphalt which hardens on exposure to light. The unhardened areas are removed with oil of lavender mixed with petroleum jelly. Prints of the image can then be made on a press. A gas combustion vacuum engine car and boat. The concept of electrical resistance and Ohm's law, that current is equal to voltage divided by resistance. The mammal egg, the ovum, is discovered. That the wavelength or particle interval of light of a given spectral line can be used as a standard of length is realized. The earliest electric printer. A spark is passed through a rotating strip of litmus paper which, by the formation of nitric acid, leaves a red dot. Roads are paved with asphalt. The first organic molecule, urea, is produced from inorganic sources. Insulated electric wire. Electric current is produced by moving a wire near a magnet. The phenomenon of dynamic electrical induction. The terms kinetic energy, as E equals 1/2 mv squared, and work, as W equals Fd, are introduced. The theory that space in the universe might be curved while only appearing to be straight. The start of non-Euclidean geometry, a geometry where one or more of Euclid's postulates is supposed to be false. That angles in a triangle made of curved lines may not add to pi, as one of Euclid's postulates requires, is demonstrated. The practice of bloodletting is denounced. The first sound recordings. Sound vibrations are recorded by a tuning fork moving an attached whisker onto a sooted glass plate. The electrical transformer, a device used to transfer electricity from one circuit to another, in particular a pair of wire coils that can be used to transfer electricity with a change in voltage, current, or phase. A primary coil is found to cause current in an unconnected secondary coil, but only when the primary current is switched on or off and not during a constant current. The dynamic electric generator, or dynamo. By mechanically moving a conductor near a magnet, a constant electric current is produced. Now a steam engine or water power can be used to produce electricity. The generator creates a large and low-cost supply of electric current. A heat sensor that can detect heat from a person 7 meters or 25 feet away. The occurrence of different compounds with the same chemical composition is named isomerism. The first plastic materials, made of nitrocellulose, are created by treating starch, sawdust, and cotton with nitric acid. The alternating electric current, or AC generator. A mechanical reaper, a machine that cuts grain. The laws of electrolysis. The mass of a substance deposited on an electrode is in proportion to the quantity of electricity and to the atomic mass of the element liberated. The speed of electricity in wire is measured using a rotating mirror. A programmable mechanical calculating machine that uses punch card programs with looping, iteration, and conditional branching is designed. The first computer program. Methyl alcohol, methanol, is discovered by distilling wood. That infrared light or heat rays can be reflected and polarized is proven. The electrical relay, a device that allows the electric current of telegraph signals to be carried over long distances. The process of silvering objects like mirrors by chemical reduction of a silver nitrate solution with an aldehyde. The nerve cell or neuron is first identified. A high-voltage induction coil that can reach 600,000 volts, far above any voltage that can be generated with a voltaic pile. A screw propeller that replaces the paddle wheel. The principle of the electric speaker, that an iron bar emits sounds that correspond to the number of currents that rapidly magnetize and demagnetize it. The basis of the fuel cell battery, the chemical union of hydrogen and oxygen gas in acidified water caused by platinum that generates electricity. The occurrence of different forms of the same element is named allotropy. The parallax of a different star is measured by comparing the position of 61 Cygni to 2 other more distant stars during the course of a year. After correcting for the proper motion, the star appears to move in an ellipse every year, which is due to parallax. The first cell theory, that all plants are made of cells. The direct-acting gas combustion engine. A cylinder is directly moved by the explosion. Light is converted into electricity. The photoelectric or photovoltaic effect. This is the first photovoltaic or solar cell. Sunlight contacting metal electrodes that are immersed in a liquid electrolyte such as ferric chloride mixed with ether produces a very small electric current. Cell theory is extended to all animals and plants. The plastic polystyrene is discovered. The first recorded polymerization. Infrared spectral lines are identified. The heat created by electrical current is found to equal the square of the current multiplied by the resistance. The first chemical fertilizers. That loss of soil fertility is caused by the consumption by plants of the minerals necessary for life, such as sodium, potassium, calcium, and phosphorus is recognized. An electric clock. Cell division is recognized. The theory that the nucleus transmits inherited characteristics. The first use of an anesthetic for surgery. A person is made to lose consciousness by inhaling ether before surgery in which a neck tumor is removed. The light fountain, the basis of fiber optic communication. The Doppler effect, that frequency of light and sound is affected by the relative motion of the source and observer. The first remote-controlled wired explosive. The first photographs from a microscope. Sunspots are shown to be cooler than the rest of the sun. The spiral shape of other galaxies is recognized. Plane polarized light is found to rotate when passing through glass subjected to an electromagnetic field. The air-filled tire. Planet Neptune is first observed. Mathematical equations are used to represent logical statements. The theory that gravity propagates with a finite velocity. The liquid explosive nitroglycerin is created by slowly adding glycerin to a mixture of nitric and sulfuric acids. That all substances become incandescent, start to glow red at the same temperature around 525 degrees Celsius or 977 degrees Fahrenheit is recognized. Antisepsis, washing hands in strong chemicals, is introduced into the health practice. The percussion gun cartridge, a casing containing an explosive charge and a bullet or shot. The absolute temperature scale is created, with minus 273 degrees Celsius as absolute zero, where all molecules stop moving. A constant high voltage from an induction coil is applied through evacuated tubes filled with various gases. That two yellow lines missing in the spectrum of sunlight are emitted from and also absorbed by an electric arc between coal electrodes is observed. The speed of light is measured using a terrestrial method. Light passes between the teeth of a rapidly turning toothed disc on one hilltop and reflects off a mirror on another 8 kilometers or 5 miles away. If the disc turns fast enough, the reflected light passes through the next gap. The first organometallic or hydrocarbon metallic compounds. This is the first time a metal atom is added to a hydrocarbon molecule. The new compound zinc methyl is created when zinc and methyl are joined. Light is shown to move more slowly in water than in air, and the speed of light is shown to be inversely proportional to the index of refraction of the medium. Ocean depths are mapped and the Atlantic Ridge is discovered. The speed of electricity in nerves is measured as 27 meters or 90 feet per second. The rotation of the Earth around its own axis is proven experimentally with a pendulum. The speed of light in water is shown to change depending on the motion of the water. Electrolysis is performed on gases. The theory of valence, that each type of atom has a fixed capacity for combining with other atoms. A practical passenger elevator with a safety device is invented. The theory that a gas absorbs and emits light of the same frequencies. The concept of energy is distinguished into actual and potential energy. The theory that an electrical mass will not be influenced by the electrical force if moving with a velocity at least the speed of light. That an epidemic of cholera is due to a transmittable agent in drinking water is understood. The first naturally occurring and artificial fats are synthesized by combining glycerol and fatty acids. The bright D spectral lines and flames of hydrocarbons are shown to be attributed to sodium, and the widespread occurrence of the D lines due to the contamination of small amounts of sodium. The first synthetic dyes are produced. The earliest extant sound recording. The luminescence of various gases in vacuum tubes under a high voltage is observed, determined to be from the gases, not the electrodes, and the spectrum of the light found to be specific to each gas. That mountain ranges are created by horizontal movements of the Earth's crust is realized. The theory of evolution is popularized. The theory that life descends from a single common ancestor, that many more organisms than can survive are born, each with individual differences, and through a process of natural selection, only the best adapted can survive to reproduce and pass on their successful traits. Many religious people are shocked that humans and apes might have a common ancestor. The first transatlantic cable. The first modern oil well. The spectral lines emitted when a substance is burned are used to determine the atomic composition of the substance. That each element emits and absorbs light at the same specific frequencies is recognized. The first element in the atmosphere of the Sun, sodium, is identified from the two dark D lines in the Sun's spectrum, and the finding that a spectral emission line can only be reversed to an absorption line when the absorber is colder than the emitter. The first rechargeable battery, which is based on lead plates immersed in sulfuric acid. The element cesium is identified, the first element to be discovered spectroscopically. The position of the spectral emission lines are found to be the same for a variety of metals independent of the molecular compound the metal is in and the heat source used. The atomic masses of some elements are found to be far from integral values, which casts doubt on the theory that all elements are made of multiples of hydrogen. By matching solar dark lines to the bright lines emitted by elements, various metals are found to be in the atmosphere of the Sun and others are ruled out. The first microphone, speaker, and telephone is invented. Sound is converted to electricity and back to sound again. A microphone converts variations in sound, air pressure, into variations in electric current, which can be carried over long distances in metal wire and then converted back into the air vibrations of sound using a speaker. That the spectrum of an element may change with change in temperature is proven by showing that at high temperatures a blue line appears for lithium. The first transcontinental telegraph line connecting San Francisco to the east coast of the USA. The process of dialysis to separate different substances is invented. That some microorganisms are anaerobic, do not need oxygen, and others are aerobic, need oxygen, is established. Organic chemistry is defined as merely the chemistry of carbon compounds with no mention of living organisms. The first color image is projected. The spectra of metallic compounds are found to be different than the spectra of the metals themselves. The machine gun or Gatling gun is invented and can fire 200 bullets per minute, around 3 bullets a second. A periodic table of elements. The first direct-acting internal combustion gas engine car. The absorption spectrum of a protein is described. Spectral lines from elements are matched to spectral lines from other stars. The process of pasteurization, heating to kill microscopic organisms, is shown to stop fermented substances like wine and beer from going sour. Some substances are found to emit different spectra depending on how they are excited by flame or electricity. The spectrum of a comet is first described. The spectra of nebulae and galaxies are seen. Unlike stars, nebulae are shown to have no spectrum except for a few emission lines, and therefore to be composed of gas by using spectral comparison. The spectrum of the Andromeda galaxy and a globular cluster are both found to have a continuous spectrum with absorption lines, similar to that of a star. The theory that light is an electromagnetic transverse wave in a surrounding ether medium. The theory of entropy, the quantity of a body's energy that is unavailable for work. The Mendelian law of genetic inheritance, the 1 to 2 to 1 ratio of inheritance of a trait, is described. The first time specific characteristics are followed through generations, and that characteristics are inherited in an all or none fashion is shown. A nova, an exploded star, is found to be surrounded by hydrogen gas from its spectrum. A meteor swarm is shown to have a comet-like orbit. Zinc sulfide is prepared and recognized as a phosphor, a substance that exhibits phosphorescence, a luminescence that persists after removal of the exciting source. Dynamite is invented. The Doppler effect is used to estimate the relative radial or line of sight velocity of celestial objects by comparing the position of spectral lines from the celestial object to those of a terrestrial light source. Sirius is estimated to be moving away from the Earth. The first practical typewriter. The first permanent color photograph is created by superimposing and fastening together 3 different colored transparent images. Bacteria are isolated from distinct diseases. The new element helium is named from an unrecognized yellow spectral line in the light of the sun's atmosphere. The theory that waves radiating from the electricity in the brain might allow images of thought to be captured on a photograph. That a spectral emission line becomes thicker because of increased pressure is observed. The spectrum of the aurora borealis is examined and found to have mainly one bright line not belonging to any known simple or compound gases. The first practical artificial plastic, celluloid, a transparent plastic created by heating a mixture of nitrocellulose, camphor, and alcohol under pressure until the mold. Multiple bonds between 2 atoms are described. That specific parts of the cerebrum can contract certain muscles is shown by direct electrical stimulation of the cerebrum of dogs, and the first map of the brain that connects brain location to function. A communication cable connects Asia and Australia. The first synthetic perfume. A periodic table with spaces that represent elements not found yet. The spectrum of lightning is found to include spectral emission lines found in air. The start of binary digital communication. Communication using only a series of on or off values. The Baudot code. Polyvinyl chloride, PVC, is produced. A synthetic resin second only to polyethylene in production, made from the polymerization of vinyl chloride. The first binder, a machine that automatically binds grain with wire into bundles. Dust in the air is shown to contain microorganisms. Bacteria are grown or cultured outside of the body. Selenium is found to convert light into electricity. The crystal diode or rectifier is invented. Metal sulfide crystals are found to transmit electricity more easily in one direction than in the other, and this will later be used to convert an alternating current into a direct current. The basis of color photography. Putting dye in a photographic emulsion allows specific colors of light, including infrared, to be photographed because the dyes allow only those specific colors to reach the light-sensitive silver compound. Electrical stimulation and physical destruction of various portions of the brain of living monkeys is shown to cause blindness, deafness, the loss of sense of touch, smell, and taste, and the need to scratch. The first direct neuron reading. Changes in electric currents on the brains of rabbits and monkeys are measured during chewing and in response to light shown in the eyes. Rapidly rotating static electricity is shown to act like an electric current, producing a magnetic field. The theory that electric current conduction in water is not due to conduction by the water but by dissolved particles such as sodium ions, and that the high conductivity of acids is because hydrogen is one of their migrating components. The first practical refrigerator is built using liquid ammonia as a coolant. The luminescence produced at the cathode in an evacuated tube under high electric potential is named cathode rays, shown to be emitted perpendicularly to the cathode surface and to cast sharp shadows. The purple pigment rhodopsin in the retina is shown to turn a yellowish color when exposed to light. Using this effect, a rabbit retina is removed, the changed dyes fixed with chemicals, and a permanent picture, an optogram, is made showing the last image the rabbit saw, in this case a barred window. A sound recording is played back out loud. That certain diseases are transmitted by insects is proven. A mosquito is shown to transmit a parasite that causes elephantiasis. Telephone wires are connected to individual homes. The ultraviolet spectra of various substances are photographed. A practical electric light bulb. Synthetic fabric. The first synthetic silk, rayon. Fibers are produced by forcing, extruding, solutions of cellulose nitrate through very tiny holes in glass and allowing the solvent to evaporate. Molecules of bromine and iodine are shown to be diatomic, breaking into single atoms on heating as shown by the density of their vapors being reduced by 2/3 of their normal values. That ultraviolet light is absorbed inside the atmosphere of Earth is understood. Chromosomes are identified in the nucleus of cells using dyes. Saccharin, the first commercially available artificial sweetener. Nucleic acids are identified. A successful vaccine is created by growing the agent of disease on an artificial media to create a milder form. Sound is sent and received using light particles. A mirror vibrating from sound sends reflected sunlight to a receiver to be transformed back into sound. The cause of malaria is found to be a protist, which shows that disease can be caused by a protist and not only by a bacterium. That cathode rays can be bent by magnetic fields is shown. Piezoelectricity is discovered. When pressure is applied to certain crystals, an electric potential is created. An artificial muscle, the physical contraction of rubber under electric potential, is measured. Practical artificial muscles will not be used in consumer products for over 130 years. Slavery is outlawed in most major nations. The electronic camera and electronic image. An image is captured and sent electronically. A successful vaccine for anthrax is created by gently heating the anthrax-causing bacteria. Certain spectral lines are found to become broader when an element is heated. A metal detector. The Michelson experiment. Light is found to have the same speed in any direction horizontal to the Earth. This causes doubt about the existence of an ether medium and about the wave theory for light. An interferometer splits a beam of monochromatic light with a glass plate into two directions at a right angle to each other and reflects them back together to detect interference. If the Earth moves through an ether, one ray will take more time and cause interference, but no interference is observed. Inverse piezoelectricity is proven. When an electric potential is applied to certain crystals, the crystals vibrate at a regular rate. The electric car. The first central electricity station and distribution of electricity to houses for electric lighting in London. The first invisible frequency light particle communication. The first radio communication. The sending and receiving of a message using light particles by electrical induction, also known as electric waves, electric radiation, and simply radio, but which may just be the photoelectric effect. White blood cells are identified and their role of destroying foreign objects in the immune system of animals is recognized. That infrared light is absorbed by the atmosphere of Earth and that some of this absorption is due to water is recognized. The theory of ionic dissociation. How molecules that are electrolytes separate in a liquid to form two or more charged ions. The first practical steam turbine. A steam engine that uses steam to turn a wheel with blades around the rim directly. High-pitch whistles measure the threshold of human hearing to be 18 kHz or 18,000 cycles per second. A system of fingerprinting is established. The first use of a local anesthetic, a drug that stops the conduction of impulses and sensory nerves in the region where it is applied. Cocaine. The Balmer series is discovered, a simple mathematical formula that gives the wavelengths of the spectral lines of hydrogen. The first practical gasoline engine and motorboat. The first motorbike. Spectral emission lines are observed to widen when subjected to an electromagnetic field. The first steel-framed building and skyscraper. A low-cost method of producing pure aluminum metal from aluminum oxide is discovered. Positively charged ion beams are discovered and called Connellstrahlen or channel rays. Using a perforated cathode, rays going through the holes in the direction opposite to that of the cathode rays are found. The gasoline internal combustion engine car. The speed of cathode rays is shown to be about 1,000 times slower than the speed of light. Plastic photographic film. That ultraviolet light causes more current to flow on a metal electrode than lower frequencies of light is found. In addition, electrical induction is shown to be like light in being propagated in straight lines, casting a shadow, refracted with a refrangibility much greater than that of violet rays of light, and to be non-electrical. The alternating current electric motor. A flat disk sound recording device. The theory that subatomic particles produce spectra. That the number of chromosomes in cells is constant and that each species has a characteristic number of chromosomes in their cells is recognized. The electricity of a heartbeat is measured and recorded and found to coincide with each heart muscle contraction. The first electrocardiograph images. Light interference between two radio sources is demonstrated and electrical induction is confirmed to have the speed of light. The wavelength or particle interval of a radio emitter is measured to be 2.8 meters, much larger than visible light. That radio can be focused and polarized is proven. A pressure of 3,000 atmospheres is obtained. Moving images are captured and stored onto rolls of sensitized paper. The theory that visible light can be produced from electrical oscillation. The first consumer camera, which brings the ability to capture photos to average people. Electricity is used to restart a heart beating. An automatic telephone exchange that allows people to connect their own phone calls is invented. The theory that matter contracts depending on its velocity relative to the speed of light is used to explain the Michelson experiment while preserving the theory of an ether medium for light. The first commercial wireless telegraph message. The motion picture camera and projector. Moving images are captured, stored on plastic film, and projected onto a screen. The theory that a picture seen by the eye can be captured from phosphorescence. The first spectroscopic binary star is identified. Two stars that appear as one, but over time a spectral line appears to double because of a change in relative velocity of each star. The first planet of another star is detected by the oscillation of a spectral line, the star Algol. Unlike spectroscopic binary stars, these spectra only show one oscillating spectral line because the light from the companion is too dim to see. The first practical smokeless explosive powder, cordite, is invented. The motion of nebulae such as those of Orion are measured and shown to be similar to those of the stars, which implies that these nebulae are part of the Milky Way galaxy. The suggestion that the minimum electric charge should be called an electron. Liquid oxygen and liquid ozone are shown to be attracted to both poles of a magnet. A camera and motor-driven telescope which compensates for the motion of the Earth relative to distant celestial objects is used for long-exposure photographs. 500 asteroids will be identified with this method, a third of all known to exist. The germplasm theory of heredity, that all inherited traits come only from the chromosomes. The double-wall vacuum container. The diesel engine. Instead of a spark, the heat from compressing the fuel-air mixture raises the temperature of the mixture to the point where ignition happens. The death rate from cholera is reduced by 70% among 45,000 people inoculated by a highly virulent strain of heat-killed cholera. A Cepheid variable star, a variable star with a short and regular period of luminosity, is found to have a period of radial velocity that matches its period of luminosity. This suggests that a dark companion causes the variation of Cepheid stars. The speed of cathode rays is shown to be less than the speed of light. The start of multiplexing, using a single wire to transmit multiple messages by only sending one character at a time while alternating between a group of messages. The element argon in the series of inert gases is identified. Argon is isolated from air and identified from its unique spectrum. Since argon combines with no element, argon is recognized to be part of an eighth group of elements that have a valence of 0. The element and inert gas helium is found on Earth when liberated from uraninite dissolved in sulfuric acid and identified by spectrum. X-rays are discovered. Radiation from a cathode ray tube is found to pass through very thick paper and even thin layers of metal to cause luminescence in a paper covered with barium platinocyanide. These rays cannot be bent by even a strong magnetic field like cathode rays, but yet apparently do not refract, polarize, or interfere like visible light does. The rays are also found to be absorbed by air less than cathode rays are. These rays are called X-rays, and the first X-ray photographs are captured of the interiors of metal objects and of the bones in a human hand. X-rays are extremely useful as a new tool in health sciences to see and penetrate into bodies. Cathode rays aimed at an isolated metal cylinder give the cylinder a negative charge, and when the current is reversed, positive rays give the cylinder a positive charge. A radio signal is sent and received over 2 kilometers or 1 mile. X-rays are detected in sunlight. Radioactivity is discovered. Invisible rays are detected from a uranium salt. The fluorescent chemical potassium uranyl sulfate is found to emit X-rays, which appear on a photographic plate wrapped in black paper placed underneath it, even without being made fluorescent by sunlight. This emission of X-rays from potassium uranyl sulfate without any external source implies that atoms are composed of smaller particles. The theory that X-rays are made of material particles. The radiation emitted from uranium salts is found to be deeply penetrating and to discharge a charged electroscope. That all substances struck by X-rays emit secondary X-ray radiation is discovered. The fluoroscope, a fluorescent screen that is illuminated in real time by X-ray beams. The electric fluorescent lamp. That X-rays ionize gases, cause gases to become electrical conductors is found, and is an easy method to produce gas ions. X-rays are used to visualize gastrointestinal movements using a drink made with bismuth, which is opaque to X-rays. The disease beriberi is shown to be caused by poor diet. This leads to the discovery of vitamins, and beriberi will be the first known dietary deficiency disease. Cathode rays are shown to be made of particles, later called electrons. This is the first particle, besides light, known to be smaller than an atom. By deflecting cathode rays with an electromagnetic field, the ratio of mass to electric charge of cathode ray particles is measured to be 10 to the minus 7 grams per coulomb, 1,000 times smaller than an ion of hydrogen from electrolysis. In addition, the theory that cathode rays are made of small negatively charged particles which are a part of all atoms. Cathode ray particles are deflected by an electrostatic field. In addition, the velocity of cathode ray particles is found to increase with electric potential and with tube exhaustion. The first electronic display, the oscilloscope. A cathode ray tube is made with a mica screen inside which is coated with fluorescent material. This allows an electron beam inside the tube to be deflected by varying currents and electromagnets, which moves a luminous spot of light on the screen. This leads to the television and computer display. The theory that X-rays might be used for telepathy. Connell-Strahlen are shown to be made of positively charged particles with a mass-to-charge ratio similar to a hydrogen ion. These positive particles will later be called protons. The speed of these particles is determined to be around 1,000 times slower than the speed of light. Thermite, the explosive mixture of a metal oxide and aluminum powder, is discovered. Hydrogen is liquefied. The boiling point of hydrogen is measured as minus 238 degrees Celsius. The first radio-controlled vehicle, a remotely controlled boat. Uranium is found to emit at least 2 kinds of radiation, one which is quickly absorbed that is named alpha radiation, and a second which has more penetrative power that is named beta radiation. The causal agent of tobacco mosaic disease is recognized as a completely new type of infectious agent, smaller and different than bacteria, which is named a virus. Electromagnetic writing and reading of data. Sound is recorded by varying the magnetization of tiny parts of a single wound wire sequentially in direct proportion to the electric current produced by the sound. When each part is then moved past an electromagnet, the sound is played out loud again in a telephone receiver. This will lead to videotapes and hard disks. The first life is saved by wireless communication from a stranded steamship. The first moon with a retrograde motion is observed. Phoebe, a moon of Saturn. A gas is found to be emitted from thorium, which will later be shown to be radon. All substances touched by the positive ions created by this gas are shown to exhibit radioactivity that lasts for several days. That rays from radium cause radioactivity in all objects placed near them is discovered. Radium rays are deflected by a magnetic field. These rays will be identified as beta rays and shown to be electrons. The negative ion is found to have the same mass and charge for all gases. Hydrogen is solidified. The theory that mass and time change for a body depending on its motion relative to the speed of light, and that no matter can travel faster than the speed of light. The pressure exerted by light is measured using very light mirrors in a vacuum. The mechanical pressure light exerts on gas molecules is measured. Beta rays of radioactivity are identified as electrons. The velocity of the electrons of beta rays is found to be more than half the speed of light, much higher than the electrons in cathode rays. A non-deflected radiation more penetrative than X-rays is identified from radium, which will later be named gamma rays. The first flight of a motor-driven gas-filled airship, an aluminum blimp. Quantum theory, the theory that all energy exists in discrete units, and the famous equation E equals hv. Around 120,000 galaxies, at the time called nebulae, are identified and photographed. Spiral galaxies are found to outnumber all other celestial objects. X-rays are shown to kill guinea pigs. The first synthetic protein is created when two amino acid molecules are condensed into dipeptides. The first radio message is sent over the Atlantic Ocean. Yellow fever is shown to be caused by a virus, the first disease found in humans to be attributed to a virus. The theory that new species can arise as a result of mutation. The element uranium is identified as the radioactive portion of uranium compounds. That there are different blood types is recognized, and the ABO blood group system is created. The theory that the mass of an electron increases with velocity. The electric motor vacuum cleaner. The electron velocity and electric potential created by the photoelectric effect is shown to depend only on the frequency of light. The theory of the cubic atom, which explains the cycle of 8 elements on the periodic table and the stability of inert gases when all 8 vertices are occupied. Radioactivity is recognized as atomic decay, in which one atom decays into another kind, also known as transmutation. That paternal and maternal chromosomes are pairs and are the physical basis of the Mendelian laws of heredity is shown. The speed of X-rays is shown to be the same as the speed of light. Alpha rays are found to be deflectable by strong magnetic and electric fields in the opposite direction of cathode rays, and so are positively charged bodies. A method of sewing together, suturing, the ends of blood vessels is developed. The airplane, the first powered, sustained, and controlled airplane flight. The radiation from radium is shown to be less when colder. The scattering of X-rays by gases is shown to depend on the molecular weight of the gas. That helium is emitted from radium is shown spectroscopically. The Saturnian model of the atom, negatively charged electrons rotate around a large mass positively charged particle. Chromatography, different substances in a liquid pigment mixture move through a column of absorptive material at different rates, separating into colored bands. The amount of inert gas emitted by radium is found to be directly proportional to the amount of uranium in any given sample, which is evidence that uranium decays into radium. The practical color photograph. The vacuum tube diode, or rectifier, which can rectify alternating current into direct current. The word hormone is coined for substances released from the endocrine gland, then carried by the blood, that profoundly influence the function of another part of the body. That calcium absorption lines do not share in the spectral line movement of binary stars is evidence of calcium in between the stars that absorbs the light. Radar, radio light, is used to determine the location of distant objects. A single gram of radium is estimated to emit over 1 billion alpha and 1 billion beta particles each second. The special theory of relativity. The theory that the speed of light is constant independently of the motion of all other objects. The theory that motion changes mass and time is adopted, but that an ether medium for light is unnecessary. The theory that the intrinsic energy of all matter is dependent on the speed of light, and the famous equation E equals mc squared, originally m equals L divided by c squared. That the color of a star is related to its size is recognized. The relative brightness of a star is determined by scaling its apparent brightness by its distance. And the theory of stellar evolution, that stars lose brightness over time, changing color in the direction of blue to red. In addition, red and yellow stars are thought to be divided into 2 groups, one with high brightness and the other with low brightness. The color motion film camera and projector. Alpha particles are found to have a charge-to-mass ratio near 1/2 that of hydrogen and are identified as helium. The electric switch and vacuum tube amplifier. A third electrode is inserted into a diode called the grid. A varying, very weak voltage on the grid can be converted into a similarly varying but much stronger electron flow from the filament to the plate. Amplitude modulation, or AM radio communication. Radioactivity is used to determine the age of rocks. From the quantity of lead in uranium ores and the known rate of uranium disintegration, some rocks are found to be at least 2.2 billion years old. A diagnostic test for syphilis is created. The mass spectrometer, a device that can separate atoms with an electric charge, ions, by their mass. Positive rays are deflected by magnetic and electric fields, so that ions of different ratios of charge to mass strike different parts of a phosphorescent screen. The helicopter. A helicopter achieves free flight while carrying a passenger. An image is displayed on a cathode ray tube. The theory of space and time is a 4-dimensional structure called space-time. The theory that an electron is a chemical element. Secondary X-ray radiation emitted from objects bombarded with X-rays is found to have a constant absorption with no regard to the intensity of the primary X-ray beam. The first images sent and received by radio. Helium is liquefied, the gas that requires the lowest temperature for liquefaction at 4 degrees above absolute zero. Cellophane, a clear flexible film made from cellulose. The first thermosetting plastic, a plastic that does not soften when heated. Bakelite. Humans reach the North Pole of Earth. The mass and size of an electron are determined. A mass of 10 to the minus 27 grams and size of 30 picometers. A wireless radio telephone is publicly demonstrated. That hereditary characters are located on a specific chromosome is recognized. A pressure of 2,000 atmospheres is obtained. The theory that most of human thinking is of images. The paths of ionizing rays, for example alpha and beta particles, are captured photographically using a cloud chamber, a device that expands gas. Electrical superconductivity at low temperatures is recognized. The atomic nucleus theory, that all atoms have a very small positively charged sphere or nucleus in their center. The size of an atom is estimated to be around 100 picometers. The theory that a machine could record the sounds of thought and could also write sounds back to the brain which are heard in thought. The products of chemical reactions are detected using a mass spectrometer. Humans reach the South Pole of Earth. The industrial use of bacteria to produce useful products. Bacteria are grown to produce large quantities of acetone and butyl alcohol. The theory of atomic isotopes. An isotope is an element that is chemically identical to another element and occupies the same position on the periodic table but has a different atomic mass. Also, that the emission of a helium nucleus, an alpha particle, reduces the initial element to a different element 2 less in number on the periodic table is recognized. The first cancer-causing virus is discovered. A neutral molecular particle beam is created by heating a metal inside an evacuated container. Molecules in the vapor then diffuse through a small hole in an internal wall. Electrophoresis. Electricity is used to separate particles in liquids. The brightness of Cepheid variable stars is shown to decrease linearly with the logarithm of their period of variation, so the brighter the star, the longer the period. By comparing the intrinsic brightness from the period of variation to the apparent brightness, the distance to the variable star can be calculated. The terms giant and dwarf are introduced to describe two kinds of stars with the same spectrum but different luminosity, and the first white dwarf star is described. The diffraction of X-rays by atomic planes in a crystal of zinc sulfide is discovered. The wavelength or particle interval of X-rays is determined to be around 10 picometers, which is smaller than ultraviolet light, and this suggests that X-rays are very high-frequency light. Cathode rays are shown to disintegrate molecules and atoms. That the same element can hold different electric charges is shown. That beta decay, the emission of a high-speed electron, results in an atom moving up one place on the periodic table is recognized. Diffraction is explained as particle reflection. The dispersion of light by a grating or prism into a spectrum of increasing frequencies is explained as particles of the same spacing as the grating groove at a specific angle of incidence, all reflecting in the same direction. The first radio broadcast, from the Metropolitan Opera House in New York City. The theory of isotopes is experimentally confirmed. Different isotopes of neon are deflected onto different parts of a photograph using a mass spectrometer. The Bohr model of the atom, that electrons move in fixed circular orbits around a stationary positive nucleus with momentum h divided by 2 pi. H is Planck's constant. The electrons give off or absorb fixed amounts of energy, quanta, by moving from one orbit to another. The general theory of relativity. Space and time are restricted to a curved surface geometry. A monochromatic X-ray beam of known wavelength is used to determine the distance between parallel atomic planes in crystals that reflect the particles in the beam. This is the beginning of using X-ray diffraction to determine the shape and the position of each atom in a molecule. The Andromeda galaxy is claimed to have a very high velocity relative to the Earth. From Doppler shift, Andromeda is estimated to be moving towards the Earth with an average radial velocity of 300 kilometers per second, 1/100th the speed of light, the highest velocity ever observed. That the electrons of beta decay originate from the nucleus and not the outer ring is given as evidence that there is negative charge in the nucleus. The high-frequency spectra of elements are mapped, and the frequency of secondary X-rays emitted from atoms is shown to relate to atomic mass. Vitamins A and B and their importance in the growth process are discovered. The Geiger counter, which detects high-velocity subatomic particles. That a rocket with an initial mass of 200 pounds can achieve a velocity high enough for a 1-pound mass to escape the Earth is determined. Gamma rays from radioactivity are found to have wavelengths in the X-ray region. Sound is recorded and played back with motion pictures on plastic film. The method of spectral parallax. The distance to a star can be determined by comparing the intensity of spectral lines of the star with another star with the same spectrum at a known distance. The first multi-stage rocket design. The Doppler effect for light is confirmed experimentally using an interferometer to measure the difference in position of the sets of rings produced by light from the two ends of a rotating white disk. The theory that spiral nebulae are other galaxies. A voltage doubling circuit. From Doppler shift, 15 galaxies are all measured to be moving away from the Earth with an average velocity of 400 kilometers per second. In addition, a spiral galaxy is found to rotate at 100 kilometers per second, about 8 times the edge of Jupiter. The theory that the atomic nucleus is made of combinations of hydrogen and helium atoms. Bacteriophages are identified, viruses that can infect and kill bacteria. That thrust and propulsion can take place in a vacuum needing no air to push against is proven. The theory of a covalent bond, in which the chemical combination between two atoms is the result of the sharing of a pair of electrons, with one electron contributed by each atom. The theory that the number of electrons in the outermost shell of an atom determines the chemical properties of the atom. The electric propulsion engine. Ultrasonic sound. Sound with a frequency too high to be heard by the human ear is produced by piezoelectricity and used to determine the location of objects by reflection. Sonar. Sonar can detect objects in air and in water, for example a fetus inside the womb and objects in the ocean. The theory that the universe is expanding. The Sun is determined to be in the outer part of our galaxy. The Cepheid variable star method is used to determine that globular clusters are distributed roughly in the shape of a sphere around a center in Sagittarius, calculated to be 50,000 light-years away. The first electronic read and write memory. Unlike other forms of information storage, with electronic memory the only moving parts are electric current. Isobars are defined as elements with the same atomic mass but different positions on the periodic table. The first radioactive tracer. A radioactive isotope of lead is used to determine the solubility of lead salts. Atomic transmutation and atomic fusion. When a high-speed alpha particle from radium collides with an atom of nitrogen gas, a proton is knocked loose from the nitrogen atom, which causes a point of light to appear on a zinc sulfate screen. In losing a proton, the nitrogen atom is converted into an oxygen atom. This is the first time one element is changed into another, which was the dream of the alchemists. This is also the first nuclear reaction, and the first atomic fusion, a larger atom being made from smaller atoms. The theory that fractional atomic weights are due to mixing of isotopes. Increase in temperature is shown to increase the number of genetic mutations in fruit flies. The theory of what will be called a neutron, that an electron can bind more closely with a single hydrogen nucleus to form a neutral atom of mass 1 with different properties than a neutral hydrogen atom. A list of the size of all atomic radii is published. Neutral molecular beams of hydrogen and helium are diffracted using a lithium fluoride crystal. Nuclear isomers are discovered, atoms that have identical nuclei but have different half-lives. The Crab Nebula is found to be expanding from photographs spanning 8 years. The atmosphere of Venus is found to have no oxygen or water vapor because those absorption lines are not found in the spectrum of Venus. Neurotransmitters are discovered, chemicals that transmit nerve impulses across a synapse. A fluid released when a frog's vagus nerve is stimulated can stimulate another heart directly. The system of antigens and antibodies is recognized. An antigen is a substance that when introduced into the body stimulates the production of an antibody. Antigens include toxins, bacteria, and the cells of transplanted organs. Light is described as being made of atoms of light, all having the same very low mass, and the equations E equals hv by Planck and E equals mc squared by Einstein are equated to solve for the mass of the atom of light. Separating isotopes by evaporative centrifuging is suggested, where a material is heated into a vapor and separated by atomic mass in a rapidly rotating tube. The theory of an all-inertial universe, where gravity is explained as a result of particle collision. The theory of polar fronts, that the atmosphere of Earth is made of air masses that are either warm tropical air or cold polar air, and the sharp boundaries between them are called fronts, similar to battle lines in war. The Compton effect. X-rays are found to have a lower frequency after being reflected by graphite, which implies that a light quantum has momentum that is lost to an electron from the collision. Radioactive lead dissolved in water allows the absorption and distribution of the lead in plants to be followed. Electronic moving images are transmitted and received using radio. Acids are defined as substances that lose a hydrogen ion in solution, and bases as substances that accept a hydrogen ion in solution. The mass of a light particle, or atom of light, is calculated to be less than 10 to the minus 50 grams. The consumer movie camera. An electronic theory of acids and bases. An acid is defined as an electron pair acceptor and a base as an electron pair donor. The ultracentrifuge. A centrifuge can force colloidal particles to settle out of a liquid and can be used to determine molecule size and mass. A light ray device that can disable vehicles and burn people. Photographs are sent over the phone wire. Tissue taken from one amphibian embryo and grafted onto another is shown to assume the character of the host, losing its original nature. Spiral nebulae are proven to be other galaxies containing stars and to be very far away by determining the distance of Cepheid variable stars. Hydrogen nuclei are called protons. The refraction of X-rays in glass is proven visually. A color image electronic scanning camera. The transistor or solid-state electronic switch and amplifier. This is the first non-vacuum tube, solid-state electronic switch and amplifier, also known as a field effect transistor, and the first millimeter-size electronic switch. A system of television is demonstrated publicly. The concept of molecular orbitals. Atomic orbitals are thought to become molecular orbitals extending over 2 or more atoms in the molecule. The first flight of a liquid fuel rocket engine. The space between ultraviolet and X-ray spectral lines around 10 nanometers is bridged. The concept of satellites and space stations. Helium is solidified. X-rays are found to greatly increase the rate of genetic mutation. Electron beams are diffracted using a single crystal of nickel. Electron beam particle intervals are found to be equivalent to X-rays, 100 picometers. A human crosses the Atlantic Ocean by plane in 33.5 hours. The name photon is suggested for the light quantum. Sleep is induced in cats using electrodes directly connected to the brain. The Raman effect. That light with visible frequencies reflected or scattered off of some substances can change frequency. The first rocket-powered plane. The first scientific pregnancy test. The infrared or heat movie camera, which can see through fog and make visible images of heat. The first regular television broadcasts. The radial velocities of other galaxies are found to be linearly related to distance. The more distant the galaxy, the higher the radial velocity. The electroencephalograph, or EEG. Oscillations of the electric potential on the surface of the head are recognized and displayed graphically. Changes in potential due to muscle movements are also detected. Direct neuron writing to the eye screen. A point on the occipital region of the human brain is electrically stimulated and the human sees a small spot of light. Extragalactic nebulae are renamed galaxies. Artificial radiation is induced by accelerating protons and molecules into lead and beryllium using a voltage of 280 kilovolts. The circular particle accelerator, the cyclotron, in which an electromagnetic field accelerates and deflects the path of ions into circles. Very penetrating radiation is found to be emitted from beryllium bombarded with alpha particles, which will be shown later to be neutrons. Women gain the right to vote in most major nations. The theory that an anti-electron and antiproton may exist with the same mass but opposite charge as an electron and proton, and the theory that a light particle is a sphere that can collide with other light particles. The electron microscope, which uses magnetic fields to focus electron beams similar to how a lens focuses light beams. This microscope is a transmission electron microscope, or TEM, which transmits electrons through the specimen. The first synthetic rubber, neoprene. Vitamin A is synthesized. The neutron is identified and distinguished from a hydrogen atom as having slightly less mass. The electric potential created in a single neuron in the eye of a horseshoe crab when light contacts the retina is measured, around 0.5 millivolts. Atomic fission and the first nuclear transformation by protons. Lithium atoms are split by protons under 125 kilovolts into 2 helium atoms. A light source from outside the solar system is found to emit radio frequencies of light. A variety of elements are disintegrated using high-speed protons. For example, fluorine into oxygen and sodium into neon. The positive electron, the positron, is identified using a cloud chamber. Plastic magnetic recording tape. The speed of light in a vacuum is measured. frequency modulation or FM radio communication, the first chemical proof of atomic transmutation and atomic fusion. Nitrogen is chemically separated from boron, which was irradiated with alpha particles from polonium and shown to have the same chemical properties as non-radioactive nitrogen. The atomic fusion of two hydrogen atoms into a helium atom. Supernovas are distinguished from ordinary novas. Atomic fission of uranium by neutrons. The theory of particle beams as weapons that can destroy planes and kill millions of people without a trace in an instant. The first atomic fission caused by light particles. Gamma rays disintegrate a deuterium atom, an isotope of hydrogen containing one proton and one neutron. From this, the mass of a neutron is estimated to be more than a hydrogen atom. That a heavier isotope tends to react more slowly than a lighter isotope is used to build up quantities of rare isotopes. Cherenkov radiation. Blue light is found emitted by various liquids bombarded by gamma rays. The artificial silk nylon. The scanning electron microscope, SEM, a device that moves a focused electron beam in rows and columns over the surface of an object and receives both the electrons scattered by the object and the secondary electrons produced by it. The theory that when an electric current is passed into a nerve, an electric potential increases until a threshold voltage is reached and excitation occurs. An artificial heart. Polyethylene is synthesized, the most widely used plastic on Earth. Muscle contraction in crabs can be varied in strength by changing the frequency of electrical current pulses on the nerve connected to the muscle. Neutrons are diffracted with crystals of magnesium oxide. A neutron beam is shown to have a wavelength of 160 picometers, similar to X-rays. A virus is cultured in vitro, in human embryonic nervous tissue. Ribonucleic acid, RNA, is detected in a virus. The turbojet engine, a gas combustion engine that propels air vehicles by hot exhaust gases from fuel burned with drawn-in air. The first transuranium elements. Elements 93 through 96 are identified from the collision of neutrons with uranium. The first image of individual atoms. Atoms are visually confirmed to be about 100 picometers in size. The field emission electron microscope magnifies the tip of a tungsten needle 200,000 times. Element 43, the first completely artificial element, the radioactive metal technetium, is created by particle collision. Technetium has no stable isotopes. The first radio telescope that has a reflector or radio dish. The process of xerography, or electrophotography, which uses electrostatic charges and heat to copy documents, the basis of photocopiers and laser printers. Teflon is invented. Both positively and negatively charged particles with a mass in between that of an electron and proton are identified from cosmic rays and given the name mesotron, which will later be changed to meson. The first image of a virus is captured. Viruses are confirmed to be about 150 nanometers in size. The bipedal or two-leg walking robot. That uranium-235 produces far more fissions per minute than uranium-238 is demonstrated. Uranium and thorium are fissioned by gamma rays. This is the first fissioning of large atoms with light particles. The spontaneous fission of uranium is observed. An antibacterial form of the fungus penicillin is found to be effective against at least 3 kinds of bacteria in mice. A circular electron accelerator is built which creates artificial gamma rays. The first color television images are broadcast. That the oxygen liberated in photosynthesis comes from the water molecule and not from carbon dioxide is proven by using oxygen-18, a stable but rare oxygen isotope. Uranium is fissioned by alpha particles under an electric potential of 32 million electron volts. That a sequence of DNA, a gene, controls the production of a particular protein is proven when X-rays cause a genetic mutation in a bread mold which results in the mold failing to make vitamin B6. This mutation is also shown to be inherited. The plastic polyester. The first detailed image of a virus is captured. The first explicit claim of a planet of a different star, recognized from the movement in photos of the nearby star 61 Cygni. A self-sustained uranium fission reaction. Cadmium rods are slowly withdrawn from a pile of graphite blocks with uranium inside, and the first uranium fission chain reaction becomes self-sustaining, driven only by neutrons spontaneously emitted by uranium. Changes in light absorption spectral lines are used to determine that molecular changes have occurred. The DNA molecule is recognized as being responsible for the creation and inheritance of structural changes in a body when a DNA molecule is found to change a rough-appearing bacteria into a smooth one, which is then passed on to later generations. That direct electrical stimulation to the brain can cause cats to become enraged or scared is shown. The first atomic fission bomb is exploded, a plutonium bomb that compares to about 21,000 tons of TNT. The microwave oven. Microwave light frequencies are strongly absorbed by water molecules and so heat materials containing water. Radio light is reflected off the moon and received back on Earth. ENIAC, the first programmable general-purpose electronic digital computer. That carbon-14 produced by cosmic ray neutrons can be used to determine the age of the Earth's atmosphere, surface, and living matter is recognized. Multiple telescopes are used in parallel to observe a larger area. Sexual reproduction, conjugation, is found in bacteria, E. coli. The first solar spectrum is captured from the upper atmosphere by a rocket, which confirms that the atmosphere of Earth absorbs light with ultraviolet frequency. Radar is used to see meteor showers, even during daylight. Elements 73 tantalum through 83 bismuth are fissioned with deuterons, helium ions, or neutrons using up to 400 million electron volts. Radio echoes are captured off of an aurora borealis. An airplane moves faster than the speed of sound in air. The theory that the atomic nucleus consists of protons and neutrons arranged in shells. The semiconductor transistor. The first computer to run a stored program. The hook and loop fastener. Velcro. The first large passenger jet airplane or jetliner flies. A neutral meson is identified. That antibodies are only formed after birth is demonstrated. The theory that there is a cloud of about 100 billion comets that surrounds our sun about halfway to the nearest stars. That the abundance of the oxygen-18 isotope in calcium carbonate varies with the temperature at which it is deposited from water and so can be used to create a temperature history of the past is recognized. The fission of medium-weight elements, copper, bromine, silver, and tin, by protons using 70 million electron volts. Negatively charged mesons are shown to disintegrate atoms. The atomic fusion of large atoms. Accelerated carbon-12 ions collide and fuse with aluminum-27 to produce chlorine-34, and with gold-197 to produce astatine-205. That viruses can be coded in bacteria DNA is shown. Moving images are recorded on magnetic tape, videotape. The first atomic fission reactor to produce electricity. The heat from uranium fission heats water to make steam, which drives an electrical generator. That some genes can turn on or off another gene and can control the rate at which a gene is switched on and off is discovered. The first hydrogen fusion bomb is exploded. The most distant galaxies are estimated to be 5 to 6 billion light-years away. The Perseus, Orion, and Sagittarius arms of the Milky Way galaxy are identified. The double helix structure of DNA is understood. The DNA molecule is a double helix made of a sugar-phosphate backbone, with the connected nitrogenous bases adenine, thymine, cytosine, or guanine extending towards the center of the helix from each of the two backbones. The double helix form requires that an adenine can only pair with a thymine and a cytosine can only pair with a guanine. The process of copying, replication, can now be explained as the two strands of the double helix being unwound, and each single helix then serves as a model for its complement. A human reaches the top of Mount Everest, the highest point of Earth, 9,000 meters or 29,000 feet, 5 miles up. The first nuclear-powered submarine is launched. The fuel supply of uranium lasts for months without the need to surface to recharge batteries. The maser, which stands for microwave amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. A beam of ammonia molecules emerges through a hole, passes through an electrostatic field into a cavity with an oscillating electric potential at the molecular transition frequency. This causes microwave light to be emitted by the molecules in the cavity, which then induces the transition to light emission in the molecules entering the cavity, causing self-sustained oscillations with a very stable frequency. So the maser can be used as a very stable oscillator or atomic clock, as an amplifier of microwaves near a molecular resonance, and as a microwave spectrometer. A single neuron is made to fire by electrical stimulation, direct neuron writing. Progesterone, a female hormone, is found to prevent ovulation, discharge of an ovum or ovule from the ovary in humans. This leads to the first birth control pill for humans. Radioimmunoassay, a method to measure tiny amounts of substances by comparing the quantity of binding of a radio-labeled substance to an antibody. The antiproton is identified by the impact of very high-speed protons on copper atoms. A bacteria enzyme is found to synthesize DNA molecules using nucleotides and ATP. This enzyme will be isolated and named polymerase. The first solid maser, also the first multi-level and continuous maser. Sound reflection is used to show that the Mid-Atlantic Ridge is a mountain range extending throughout the oceans of the world and is some 64,000 kilometers or 40,000 miles long. Transfer RNA, tRNA, is identified. The first human-made satellite, an 83 kilogram or 184 pound aluminum sphere that carries 4 antennas, reaches an Earth orbit with an apogee, farthest point from Earth, of 940 kilometers or 584 miles, and circles Earth every 96 minutes. The first animal to orbit Earth, a dog. Direct neuron writing to hearing using an implanted electric device, the first cochlear implants. The Mossbauer effect. When atoms are in a crystalline lattice, the lattice prevents them from recoiling, and so the atom can emit and absorb gamma radiation of the same exact frequency, resonantly. This phenomenon allows highly precise measurements of frequency. A high intensity of corpuscular radiation temporarily trapped in the Earth's magnetic field is discovered. These layers will come to be called the magnetosphere or the Van Allen radiation belts. The first atomic explosion in empty space and first rocket-launched atomic explosion. The integrated circuit, or IC, the first ship to pass the moon. The Earth is found to be slightly pear-shaped from the motion of a 1 kilogram or 3 pound satellite. Signals from life of other stars are searched for. A ship impacts the moon of Earth. The moon is shown to have no significant magnetic field or radiation belts. The first pictures of the far side of the moon of Earth. A device inside the body is controlled remotely, a radio-controlled artificial heart pacemaker. An X-ray telescope. Humans reach around 11 kilometers or 7 miles below sea level. Light is proven to have mass. Gravity is shown to change the speed of light, proving that the speed of light is not constant. The Mossbauer effect is used with radioactive iron-57 to show that the wavelength of a beam of light with gamma wavelength is increased or redshifted as the beam is sent from the top floor of a tower to the basement. This is because of the stronger gravity field at the basement, which is closer to the center of Earth. An X-ray photograph of the Sun. The laser, which stands for light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. Light is fed into a ruby cylinder from a flash lamp, and the ruby emits light that is monochromatic, single frequency, and coherent. All the beams are in a single direction. These coherent beams of light can travel thousands of kilometers without spreading very far apart. A logical contradiction in the theory of space and time dilation is identified in that time appears different depending on which of two clocks is viewed as stationary, and the first recognition that spectral line position changes as a result of a change in light source distance. The first passive communication satellite. Stations on the surface of Earth send and receive data with the satellite, a mylar polyester balloon. The principle of computerized axial tomography, CAT, is described. A thin line of X-rays is used to determine the density of the inside of objects by measuring the difference in X-ray absorption from many angles around an object. Messenger RNA in the system that regulates protein synthesis in the cell, regulatory genes called operins, are identified. The first gas laser, using a mixture of helium and neon. The seafloor spreading hypothesis, that continents are carried passively on top of the spreading seafloor. The first human to orbit the Earth. The first nucleic acid nucleotide is found to code for a specific amino acid. A synthetic RNA molecule made of a single repeating nucleotide, uracilic acid, makes a protein containing only one amino acid, phenylalanine. That 3 DNA nucleotides code for one amino acid in a protein is understood. The bacteria Escherichia coli is shown to have a single chromosome which is in the shape of a circle. That RNA has a helical structure is recognized. RNA is usually single-stranded but can fold back on itself to form a double helix, as is the case for tRNA and rRNA. The semiconductor laser. A forward-biased gallium arsenide p-n junction emits a monochromatic microwave light. X-ray sources from outside the solar system are observed. Laser writing and reading of data. Data is written to and read from plastic film. An undersea station where humans live for prolonged periods of time. The charged particles are emitted by the sun in all directions following the lines of force of the sun's magnetic field is confirmed. Quasars, quasi-stellar radio sources, are identified. Extragalactic objects, star-like in appearance and having spectra with characteristically large redshifts that are thought to be the most distant and most luminous objects in the universe. The first woman to orbit the Earth. A carbon dioxide laser is invented, the most powerful commercial gas laser. That a virus inserts its DNA into the DNA of the host cell, which makes the cell a cancer cell that produces more cancer cells, is shown. The liquid crystal display, LCD, which uses less electricity, weighs less, and is thinner than a cathode ray tube display. The first sequence of nucleotides in a nucleic acid are determined. The finding of background radiation and the claim that this supports the Big Bang expanding universe theory. 2 termination codons, nucleotide triplets, UAG and UAA, are identified as signals in messenger RNA for terminating a polypeptide chain. The first ship to reach Mars and to return images of the surface. The first images of another planet ever returned from deep space. A head-mounted computer display for virtual reality. The first ship from Earth to make a soft landing on another world, the Moon. And the first ship to return images from the surface of another world. The first ship to impact a different planet, planet Venus. The first ship to orbit a body beyond the Earth, the Moon. The ship turns around 8,000 kilometers or 5,000 miles from the Moon, fires its rockets to slow down, and enters lunar orbit. Laser writing to a disk. The first successful heart transplant. Tissue compatibility is found to be determined by specific genes. The first handheld calculator. The theory that a chip inside the body could enable radio communication of sound to and from thought. Direct neuron writing to the eye screen using an implanted electronic device. Pulsars, stars that emit regularly timed bursts of radio light with a small interval, are identified. A multi-wire solid-state particle detector increases the speed of particle detection. The first humans to orbit the Moon. The first known structure of an antibody is determined, a protein molecule containing 1,330 amino acids. Humans land and walk on the surface of the moon of Earth. The first crewed vehicle to land on the Moon. 2 humans spend about 21 hours on the Moon and return 8 days later after liftoff. A DNA molecule is broken with an enzyme, restriction enzymes. A walking robot that uses pneumatic, air-filled, rubber artificial muscles. The Internet. People use computers to communicate over the telephone wire network. The digital electronic camera. The charged coupled device, or CCD, an electronic memory that can be charged by light. 2 DNA molecules are combined using an enzyme, ligase. Using this enzyme, the first artificial gene is synthesized from DNA segments, the gene for a tRNA molecule. A protein with the same amino acid sequence as the human growth hormone is synthesized and displays growth-promoting activity. A robotic ship from Earth returns samples from another body, the moon of Earth. The first ship to soft land on another planet, Venus, and the first to transmit data after landing. The first orbiting space station. The first ship to orbit another planet, Mars. The first ship to orbit another planet, Mars. The first global mapping of the surface of Mars and detailed views of the Mars moons. The first microprocessor and central processing unit, CPU. An integrated circuit which contains 2,300 transistors with a clock rate of 740 kHz, has 46 instructions, and uses external RAM and ROM. The first ship to soft land on planet Mars and return data. Light particle communication using liquid-filled glass fiber. Fiber optic communication. The first email, electronic mail program. A ship passes the meteor belt between Mars and Jupiter. Proteins are synthesized by using a virus to add DNA into bacteria. This is the beginning of genetic engineering. One result of this recombinant technology are bacteria that contain the gene for producing the mammalian hormone insulin. 2 streams of high-velocity electrons are collided head-on, and electrons are collided with positrons. A ship reaches Jupiter and sends the first close-up images. The giant planet's radiation belts and magnetic field are also mapped. The first ship to reach Mercury, to return close-up images and to use the gravitational pull of one planet, Venus, to reach another planet, Mercury. The personal computer, a multi-window computer program with movable windows. The first ship to orbit and land on Venus and to transmit the first image from the surface of another planet. The temperature at the surface is 460 degrees Celsius or 860 degrees Fahrenheit. Atmospheric pressure is 90 times that at the surface of Earth. An external object is moved by thought, electricity in the brain. The first images and soil samples from the surface of Mars. The complete DNA sequence of a virus is determined. A small virus with 5,375 nucleotide pairs which codes for 9 different proteins. The first X-ray laser. A self-driving car. The successful birth of a human baby after in vitro fertilization. The first close-up images of the moons of Jupiter. A ship reaches Saturn and sends the first close-up images. The scanning tunneling microscope, or STM. Individual atoms and molecules of many kinds can be seen. The first close-up images of the moons of Saturn. Beams of protons and antiprotons are collided head-on. The first reuse of a spacecraft. The first Venus soil samples and sound recording of another planet. The first ship from Earth to fly farther than all known planets of this star system. Humans are shown to be genetically closer to chimpanzees than other primates. A multicellular organism is cloned. Genetically identical copies are made. The nucleus in an ovum is replaced with the nucleus from an embryo cell and reimplanted to produce genetically identical animals, sheep. Copies are made of DNA sequences from an extinct species. A DNA molecule is imaged at the atomic scale. Genetic fingerprinting. Certain sequences of DNA unique to each organism can be used to identify individual organisms and also to determine family relationships. Polymerase chain reaction, PCR, a simple technique that allows a specific segment of DNA to be copied billions of times in a few hours. A ship reaches Uranus and sends the first close-up images of the planet, its moons, and its rings. A microscopic electric motor. A ship reaches Neptune and sends the first close-up images of the planet, its moons, and rings. Individual atoms are moved. An STM is used at low temperatures to form the letters IBM in xenon atoms. A light particle or optical computer processor. The first ship to capture an image of the entire star system, Sun and all planets, in one picture. A telescope is placed in Earth orbit. The first ship to reach and send close-up images of an asteroid. The World Wide Web is released to the public by way of FTP, the first free video phone program. A ship discovers the first known moon of an asteroid, the first internet browser, the first ship to orbit Jupiter. An animal is cloned by replacing the nucleus of an ovum with a nucleus from a somatic cell and then stimulating the ovum with electrical pulses to start dividing. This proves that the DNA of the differentiated somatic cell does not involve an irreversible modification for the embryo to develop. The first images read directly from neurons. Embryonic stem cells transplanted onto spinal cord tissue are shown to differentiate, integrate with, and promote recovery in the spinal cord of injured rats. A ship orbits an asteroid. The human genome is sequenced. The first ship to land on an asteroid. A microscopic radio chip, or RFID chip. A remote control device emits drugs inside a human body. A nanometer scale electric motor. The first ship to orbit Saturn. The first image of a planet of a different star. Stem cells are used to repair damaged nerves, allowing a paralyzed human to walk. A ship lands on a moon of Saturn, Titan. That mass and motion cannot be converted into each other is recognized. The first remote neuron reading. An image of what the eyes are seeing is captured remotely using magnetic resonance imaging, MRI. Different syllables of thought audio are also distinguished remotely. Sound a brain hears is recorded directly from the brain. The theory that globular clusters are the inevitable result of highly adapted living objects. Stem cells are created by replacing the nucleus of an ovum with the nucleus of a skin cell. This method allows people to be their own stem cell donor.